Welcome in. Happy God, it's Wednesday. Holy shit. I actually didn't know for a minute and I almost forgot. So, how's everyone doing? Welcome in. Welcome in. Hi, Sunav. Hi, Oda-san. Hi, Herc. Welcome in, friends. Hope you guys are excited for another weekly history stream. We're finishing, well, we're not finishing, we are continuing, maybe finishing, our presentation with Yariko-san.
Hello.
Oh, thank you for the sub, Monty. Welcome back to the harem. But we're finishing our, well, like I said, not finishing, continuing, maybe finishing our presentation from Yariko-san, who's joining us today on the Yucatan Peninsula and Mesoamerica, pre-colonial Mesoamerica. So if you're a little lost, or if you weren't here for the first one, that was, I think, 2 weeks ago. Is that right?
2 weeks ago, yes.
Yeah. Then you can check it out on YouTube. So hang out, watch this one, and then go back and watch for more context on YouTube. It's really cool. It was a lot of fun, so you guys should totally check it out. Yo, thank you for the sub watcher. Welcome back to the harem. We are Olmec maxing. I'm afraid you missed the Olmecs, though, Stunov. That was what we ended on last stream.
Yeah, we did. We covered that last stream.
Now, I will let you guys know. I actually forgot to turn them off, so I have to do that real quick. But I'm going to turn off a lot of the redeems, and I apologize for that. But I have to turn off the ones with sound so that we are respectful to Yariko's presentation. Subbing and donating is perfectly fine. Giving bits is perfectly cool. Gifting to the Ko-Fi is totally fine. I must ask that you guys try and do your best to just kind of enjoy and not interrupt the discussion. If you're subbing and stuff, don't worry about it. That's perfectly fine. I just request that we treat Yariko and myself respectively for our questions and our discussion. And I also apologize because I will not be conversing with chat as much as I usually am, but I will still be paying attention to chat. And we will be taking questions towards the end so that you guys can get your questions in and we can get a bit of a dialogue going with chat. So let me get some stuff turned off and then we should be all good to go.
Hell yeah.
Okay. So if you want, Yariko, while I do this, you can go ahead and introduce yourself, I guess.
Okay, oh my god. Okay, so I'm Yariko. I'm a Mexican Vtuber. Mexican as in I was born and currently live in Mexico. I'm a Dark Elf Vtuber too. And we're gonna talk about mostly like Mesoamerica, pre-Hispanic cultures. And we're going to also talk about the Mayans because I grew up in the Yucatan Peninsula in a state known as Campeche. So I'm going to do like a brief overview of the Mayans in general, and then I'm going to do more of a deep dive in the specific Mayan city-states that ruled over in Campeche. And yeah.
Awesome. So I was actually going to ask, do we want to do like some kind of small recaps for the people that weren't here last week? Is that something we'd want to do?
Yeah, we could do that if you want. I don't mind.
Okay. Like, so we'll do like a quick rundown, I guess,
from
the presentation.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I guess just like really TLDR it for these few slides.
Yeah. TLDR, Yari, Mexican, born in the north of Mexico, raised in the south of Mexico, and then back to the north. And I've been living in the north since like 28, something like that. Yeah. I'm an engineer. Wanted to be an archaeologist. I'm also a chef and a brewer. So yeah, lots of bullshit going on in my life.
Lots of stuff. Cool jobs. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Lots of alcohol too.
Hell yeah.
Which we dig. Mm-hmm. Then on the next slide, we have a little timetable, basically. In Mesoamerica, which is the area where most of the pre-Hispanic cultures in Mexico resided, like, for example, the Mexica, the Olmeca, the Maya, etc., big etc., because there's a ton of them. We have three time periods that we usually study, right? It's the pre-classic, the classic, and the post-classic. Anything that's located in the pre-class before the pre-classic is considered prehistory kind of stuff, like caveman people, like nomadic tribes, people
Like
that lived in the
chat.
caves. Yeah,
Yeah, like
exactly,
chat.
like
Yeah,
chat,
exactly. Like chat. Yeah.
pretty much. And then we start the pre-classic around uh, 2100 before the Common Era. So BCE, I think it's the word.
Right.
And we have some evidence
Well,
of.
hold on. Actually, in this
Mm.
good Christian stream, BC stands for before Christ and AD stands for after death.
Oh my god, but I thought you were an Egyptian goddess. What the heck?
You know what's
Are you
really ironic
bowing
is that like
down? Mm.
year 0 for like Jesus's death is like
Mm.
year like 5 or like 3012 for me or some shit. Like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, definitely. So we have some evidence of archaeological sites in all of Mexico that range from 2100 BC before Christ. For example, there is a settlement in Tabasco, I believe. It's thought to be from a Maya settlement, and that one's like the oldest one we have found. I think it's around 21 BCE. Yep. And then the pre-classic covers from 21 BCE all the way to 100 um, AC after Christ, I think it's called, or the
uh
Common Era CE.
so actually like unironically like BC and AD actually like don't mean before Christ after death. In Latin it's
Right.
like
Yeah, Anno Domini.
BC,
Yeah, I know.
yeah, and then AD is like Adamus Domine or something like that, but yeah.
Anno
Forget what it
Domini
is.
is yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Anno Domini, which means like the year of our Lord or some bullshit like that.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Then we have the classic from the 300 to the 900, and the post-classic from the 900 to basically when the Spaniards came, which was in
Right.
1520 something. Then on the next slide,
Well, hold
we
on, real
have.
quick. Sorry.
Mm,
Yeah, just go ahead and
no
tell me
worries.
next slide when you're ready for the next one as we like try and rapid fire these off because we got a lot of slides left. But just as a
Yeah.
reminder for a quick like brush over for chat, like 2100 like AC at the far left behind Yariko is like that is like Middle Kingdom, ancient Egypt. Classico is like towards the end of Rome, and then post Classico is like feudalism up to like Spanish conquest. So like
Yeah.
to put in like other areas of the world, like that is how old we're
Yeah,
talking with some of
200s.
these cultures.
Yeah,
Right.
some were very, very, very old.
Yeah, pretty
Then
old.
next slide. We have three main areas of interest in these are Oasis America, Arido America, and Mesoamerica. And these have been defined by the type of cultures that settle in these areas, or not settle in the case of Arido America because they were nomadic. The type of climate, also if they did agriculture or not. For example, in Oasis America, we have cultures that did agriculture and settled and made settlements and cities. And we don't have that in Ariel America, right? In Ariel America, it's usually less precipitation, no evidence of farming until way later. Mostly nomadic tribes that did, hunter gathering kind of stuff. And the tribes in Arido America were usually all considered barbarians by the cultures in Mesoamerica. In Mesoamerica, we also have a very like many cultures, and all of them usually are closely related to some degree. Like you can see inspirations in one culture from a different culture, like they worship the same gods, maybe with a different name, but you can see that is the same god because of the architecture or the things that they put in the temples. Um, Most of them in central Mexico, they spoke Nahuatl, which is still a spoken language nowadays. In southern Mexico, like in the Yucatan Peninsula, parts of Guatemala and Belize, they spoke Mayan, which is still spoken too. In other parts of Mesoamerica, there were different cultures like the Toltecs, the Olmecs, the Zapotecs, the Teotihuacans, the
Okay,
Mixtecs,
okay, all
etc.
right. I
Yeah,
don't mean
what's
to
up?
interrupt, but we are gonna have
Yeah.
to go faster with these slides. We cannot go
Holy
this
shit!
slow. You're gonna
Yeah,
have
no,
to
no
be
worries,
like,
worries.
for this, you have to be like, yeah, there's a difference between Oasis, Orito, and Mezzo, and like the next
Right,
slide.
right.
Because we
The
have, I think we
next
still
one
have
is
like
fast.
15 slides to go.
Oh no, no! Oh, Hara, oh, you poor sweet child.
Yeah, and you keep
Anyway,
adding more.
yeah, because it's fun. Anyway, next slide, really fast. Um, next one is a map of basically you can see different cultures here, right? All those little lines are the territory boundaries of different cultures.
Let me see if I
Uh,
can zoom in. I can. Sick. All
yeah,
right.
you can. It's a very big map. The purple to the right is
You know what
usually
they say about big
considered.
maps?
Yeah, the purple.
Small
Well,
penis.
yeah. So
No, not yet.
yeah,
Okay.
all the cyan areas, those are like city states. The brownish area, that's the area ruled by the Mexica, um, which was a triple alliance between three city states. Then we have the Tarasco culture, which is the bright green. Then to the north, on it's like a pink, green, orange, and whatever. Those are considered barbarians. Those are Chichimecas. Then the purple to the south in the Yucatan Peninsula, those are the Mayan territories, which are also divided into city states. Because that's how most of the cultures in Mesoamerica were city states with deserts, right? They didn't have that thing they had in Europe that they made a big country. I mean, and also like countries in Europe took a while to develop, right? Because you have Germany, for example, which was also city states up until
Sorry.
like Napoleonic Wars. Anyway, let's
We have to
continue.
go quick with these.
Yeah, no
If
worries.
Chad wants in-depth discussion, they can go back to last week's. Thank you for the sub, Janelle. Welcome back
Yeah.
to the harem.
And then next slide.
Next slide.
Yeah. So we have the Mixtecas. Those are in an area known as Oaxaca right now. They are known as the cloud, the people of the rain or the people of the cloud. They are a similar civilization to another called Zapotecas, which are next to them, that also call themselves the city of the clouds. You can go to the next slide. And they are literally on the other side of Oaxaca. Um,
I
you
would
can
like
you
to add,
can
this is one hell of a fucking hash pipe.
Oh yeah, I mean technically it's not a pipe; it's like a brassiere, basically. Yeah,
A brazier. Okay.
yeah, brazier. Yeah. Because they use smoke on ritual and stuff, right?
I
Then we
smoke
have
for ritual too, right? Ain't that right, Chad?
hell
Ain't
yeah,
that right? Yeah.
hell yeah.
Yeah,
Then we
peyote.
have
I literally
oh
went
yeah,
crazy and flayed a man alive last time. Anyway,
hell yeah. Anyway, so we have the Zapotecas, right? The Zapotecas are a similar culture to the Mixtecas. They are also very old, though the Mixtecas are a bit older than them. There are very important settlements, one known as Mitla, which is known, or it's thought to be a reference to Mictlan, which is the underworld. That place used to be a necropolis. You can go to the next slide. Um, then we have the Totonacas. Uh, the name of their culture means three hearts, basically because they had three city states that were in league. Um, yeah, they didn't worship the same gods as the Mexica,
Ooh,
and or they had more like a god of the sun, a goddess of the corn, etc., etc. Right?
right.
Um, if you look at the right, that little pyramid on the right, that's called El Tajín, and all of those windows, like they have one window for each day of the year, which show us that they had really developed knowledge of astronomy.
They've also
Then in the
got
mm,
prehistory Tom Brady telling his wide receiver to go far for his ear of corn that he's throwing like a football.
yeah, exactly.
Little do people know that football comes from ancient Mesoamerica.
Oh,
But
that is correct. Yes.
all right,
Then we have the Olmecs. The Olmecs existed from 500 BCE to around 400 BCE. They're a very old culture. They made these big heads, like they're like human size or way bigger than a human. I think the biggest one weighs around 40 tons. They were extracted from a different place that's like 200 kilometers away and then rolled to their resting points in Tabasco usually. They're
I like those
considered one of
mighty
the
beans.
yeah, they're considered one of the mother cultures in Mesoamerica, which means that other cultures around them got inspiration from them. Or thank you for the follow, whoever that was. um, and like for example, we can see inspiration in Mayan cities taken from Olmecs, right? Um, and those big heads are thought to be the heads of kings, basically. We don't know for sure because we haven't found any um, like many, like written text with information. But yeah, anyway.
They kind of look like Murdoch from
Mm.
God, what's the guy in the chair with a massive head? Yo, thank you for the follow,
Oh,
Shigelagawa. Welcome into the cult. How you doing? But yeah, they look like Murdoch, like the guy with like massive, like he's just a head and like tiny baby arms in the chair or whatever.
yeah. Oh,
All
yeah,
right.
Shigelio. Thank you for the follow. Yeah.
All right. So
Anyway.
now we're completely caught up. If you want more in
Yeah.
depth discussion, including my questions and how the big deep dive into it, you can check the VOD on YouTube from 2 weeks ago. It should be under the weekly history streams playlist. And that would be available to you there. So if you want to know what I had to
Yes.
ask and like how deep we really dove deep into some of these topics. Again, we talked about this for 3 hours 2 weeks ago. So, and we only got
Yeah.
through like 9 slides maybe. So it's some deep discussion. All right.
Yeah.
So we're finally caught up to the meat and bones. All right, we're to the
Let's fucking go.
Teotihuacan. I think I said that right.
Yeah, mostly right. Teotihuacan. Yeah.
Yariko said not even close. You fucking dumb idiot.
anyway, anyway. So Teotihuacan is a city-state located in central Mexico. It's very close to Mexico City, modern day Mexico City. Also, kind of close to what used to be Tenochtitlan, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
that city rose to power around the year 100 BCE and then fell off existence in 650 CE. So they were around for 750 years, right?
Right.
Um, we don't know for sure how large their territory was, but it's theorized that they mostly kept in the city state, but they were very influential and had a lot of political power and religious power, specifically religious power. Why? Because we have seen evidence of the cult to Quetzalcoatl all the way back to Guatemala. They
Wow.
are using the same motifs and the same architectural style that comes from Teotihuacan. We see it in Toltec buildings, which we're gonna cover after this. We've seen them in Chichen Itza, for example. The castle, the big pyramid, that's a temple for Quetzalcoatl, right? and
Right.
we see the snake heads. For example, if you can
Okay.
zoom out
Yeah,
on
I'm gonna
the
zoom
right
in.
one, yeah, that's in the Temple of Quetzalcoatl in the Pyramid of Teotihuacan, right?
Now, is
And
this a recreation or is this like actually what was there?
let me check
I'm
the
curious about
mural
that because
there.
that looks incredibly well preserved. I would
That
imagine
one,
it's like a recreation, but like it's like a 1-to-1. I would imagine like they just like refurbished it.
I think, if I remember correctly, that is actually a recreation. But
Okay.
yeah, I
Yeah, it
can
does
show
look
you a
very
picture of.
vibrant.
Yeah. No, it's super vibrant. They did use a lot of red in their drawings and murals. Most of these sculptures made murals, right? And
Right.
also, most of the pyramids that they built were covered in stucco, like plaster,
Right, right,
and they
right.
were painted over, right? So they
Right.
were
So it's like a Roman fresco.
basically, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, that's it's the same way how Roman frescoes were made. So there's a lot of
right.
parallels to be drawn for sure.
Yeah,
Love of
definitely,
red,
definitely.
frescoes, intricate
Mm-hmm.
architecture, things like that.
Right. So in the Temple of Quetzalcoatl, we can see two characters here. So the first one is the snake head. That's representative of Quetzalcoatl. The feather snake. And the other
Right.
one is it's a little character with boogly eyes, right? That one is a representation of Tlaloc, the god of the rain.
Can I just say that like Tlaloc is like such like a metal name? Like that sounds like something that would be like a dark god in like some
Yeah,
D&D universe. It's like Tlaloc, the great
yeah,
flooder.
yeah. Which
Like
also both of them appear in Fate Grand Order, obviously.
that's pretty sick.
Kind, kind of funny, kind of funny. Yeah. Also, in
I keep zooming
Teotihuacan, we
out.
have some of the biggest pyramids in Mesoamerica and also in the world. Like if you Google the Pyramid of the Sun in Teotihuacan, it's pretty big. Um,
Right.
Another thing that I didn't mention a couple weeks ago is that most of pyramids in Mesoamerica are were built like in steps, right? So that
Right. There's stepped
means.
pyramids.
Oh no! I mean that's true, right? But that's not what I mean. What I mean is
Oh, you
like
mean like in
there was
steps,
one
as in like in a certain
there
order.
not really. What I mean is like there was, for example, let's say your grandparent. He was the ruler. He made a little pyramid to, I don't know, say that he was like he had a big dick or whatever. And then his son, after his dad passes away, he's like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna make a bigger one. And they usually what they did is they just made a bigger pyramid on top of the one that they made before, right?
Oh.
So you have these layers of temples over temples over temples over
So
temples.
would they remove their father's body or would they just build around it?
They would build like around and on top of it, right?
Okay, so that's actually
Um,
crazy because that is a separate. We already did an academic presentation on this. I think it was around November or December of last year. It's on the Egyptian concept of usurpation. And I say last year, but it
right,
was actually more like 6 or 7 months ago.
right,
And the idea of usurpation is like taking a monument in Egypt, building upon it that is typically your father's or a forefathers, scratching their name out and putting your name in. And the modern or like the academic perception of like the 50s and 60s saw this as like an ultimate like negative because like they
right,
thought that it would be the same as damnatio memoriae where like you're just striking out their memory. But now that we have
right,
more cultural context, we now understand that it was an honorific thing
right.
because pharaohs saw themselves as the predecessor spiritually and physically to the last
Right.
pharaoh. So it was more like they were
Yeah,
just
exactly.
updating their name and saying like this monument is worth updating the name on it. So it's
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
interesting that not only are pyramids, granted these are stepped pyramids,
Mm-hmm.
um, which give more of a credence to Babylon and Assyria than they do Egypt.
Right.
But it's still interesting that this is something that they built, and then in the same way, the same concept, did their own style of usurpation, where like they are usurping the site and they
Right.
are usurping the legacy of their forefather, but they're also honoring them in the sense of like, my forefather is the center of what I'm building here, like the center of my monument,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is really
Yeah,
crazy and really cool to think about.
and they usually one thing that's theorized is that they did this kind of like to honor their forefathers. They wanted to make
Exactly.
something more magnificent and more like intricate. And that's what we've been finding, right? Because for example in the temple of Teotihuacan, they started using the lidar tech, it's like the laser kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
um yeah, yeah, yeah. So they started using that to like try to find more pyramids that were not.
Essentially, for chatters that don't know what it is, it's a technology that's come out in the archaeological field in the last 10 to 15 years. And essentially,
Yeah,
what it is, it's a ground permeating laser. And it allows them to essentially, like, I don't know how it uses it. I think it's just like depends on like interference with the laser, or it's like some kind of radar sonar kind of thing. I'm not quite sure.
yeah,
But it
something like that.
allows them to map things underground without actually digging through them.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're able to get like, for example, they've used on the Great Pyramid of Giza and found like a hidden hatch, which I don't believe led to anything. I believe it was a service hatch just for used during its construction. Yeah, it's I don't know if it's radar. It's like a literal laser. It's like an
yeah.
actual
It's
like
like a laser.
laser
And like,
system.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So they've been using that technology here a lot, and they found a bunch of different periods of construction inside the Sun Pyramid and inside the Moon Pyramid in Teotihuacan, right? Because in Teotihuacan there's two big temples, and I mean technically three. The biggest ones are the Pyramid of the Sun, which is the picture you can see to the left, corner left. That's the Pyramid of the Sun. It's very very fucking high. I actually had the chance
Oh, you can
to.
actually see people on top of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I don't
Actually, I
know if you
had the
guys can
chance
see
to
this, Chad. If you look
climb
very
there.
close, the weird like so like zoomed out, I thought it was just like grass or like trees on top of it. But if you look, those are all different colors. Those are people. Like those are shirts. The little things up on the
Oh yeah,
steps on the right
yeah.
face. Those are people climbing up the steps. That is how large this is. This is like about. I think it's shorter. It looks shorter than the Pyramid of Giza, but it looks wider, like way
Uh,
wider.
I believe that it is actually that's the case. It's wider, a bit shorter, but wider.
Yeah,
Um,
that is a massive structure.
yeah, it's enormous, and it's not the biggest one in Mexico. Um, then we have the Pyramid of the Moon, which is not in that picture, and we also have a Temple of Quetzalcoatl, which is the one that has all the Tlalocs and Quetzalcoatl faces on the sides. Um,
Right,
but
right.
mm, but that's what we found, right? That they build these monuments in like a certain order. Like they made one, and then some time passed. They probably became more powerful as a city state, and they decided to make it bigger, and then make it bigger, and then make it bigger. Um,
Right.
and they also try to have different temples for different gods that they used to um, do cult to. Um, but yeah, the Pyramid of the Sun is fucking massive. I went there in 2013, I believe, and I had the chance to climb all the way to the top. Took me a bit because the steps are very high.
Right. Yeah, they're not like shuffling up the stairs at your local hostel kind of steps. It's
Yeah,
like
no,
you're goose
it's
stepping your way up the building.
kinda, and it's a really cool site. If you ever have the chance to visit it in Mexico City, you should definitely check it out.
Now, are there still pyramids that are
Mm.
still open to be walked upon in the public? Because I know a lot of them are closed. And not only are they
There
closed,
are a
but the
bunch.
locals will be extremely upset if you climb on it.
There are a bunch of ones. For example, Teotihuacan is open to the public. You can climb it. That's not a
Okay.
problem. I believe Palenque in Chiapas is also open to the public. I believe the Tajín in Veracruz also open to the public.
Right.
The
Because I know that
Castillo
they're
in Chichen Itza was open to the public. I had the chance to climb all the way to the top back then. That was in 19 no, it was like in 2004 when I did that last.
I
But
gotcha.
they changed that because sometimes you get asshole tourists that damage the sites, right? Like
Right.
they do graffiti or some more bullshit,
Exactly.
and
They like fucking etch their name in some bullshit. Yeah, I was in
yeah,
DC and that happened a lot as well. It was really
yeah,
lame.
it's
Um
very annoying, but yeah,
and don't fuck around, chat. If you ever decide to like take a cruise down and go visit these or something, a lot of them are like the pyramids of Giza where you're not allowed to climb them. You're just allowed to walk right up to them pretty much. And I
yeah.
don't know if you've seen it on social media. If you are not allowed to climb on some of these, or if you graffiti some of these, the locals will kick your ass. Like, they will straight up wait for you to come to the bottom and they will actually beat the shit out of you. I've seen it happen. They do not take kindly to people fucking with their stuff. And it's
Oh
totally
no, yeah,
understandable why.
yeah. No, people here get really upset when someone does that kind of shit because we see it as just fucking up with the heritage, right? I
Right.
send you a little. Can I post links on your stream? Question mark.
Let me VIP you real quick. Just to
Okay.
make sure.
I mean, I'm already VIP. So
Oh, are you? If you're
yeah.
VIP, you should be good.
Okay, good. So I posted a little link on the side chat. In that one, you can see a comparative of the sizes of all the pyramids that are built or under construction, right? So you can see the Pyramid of the Sun is number 10. It has a wider base than the Pyramid of the Ben Pyramid, I think, and also a wider base than the Red Nor Pyramid. It's a bit smaller than the Chefren Pyramid and it's a bit smaller than the Giza Pyramid. But yeah, you can see them there. But yeah, that's Teotihuacan. Very influential culture. We don't really know what happened to them. They just started to decline. Um, it's theorized that it was just the usual political instability, war, social conflict.
Right.
By
As
the
you do.
time, yeah, by the time they declined and other cultures arose, they saw this city as a city of the gods. And usually, what Teotihuacan means, like what those words mean in Nahuatl, is uh, the place where men become gods, basically,
Wow.
or the place of
So
the gods. Mm.
I would like to provide a little bit of context. So Yariko gave a figure here that says population is estimated at 1 to 200K at around 200 CE. And you might be thinking of yourself, like, what is that? Like a small city? Who cares that much? So I want to give some comparisons. So at this time period, exactly at 200 CE, Rome is still at its height at 1 million people in population, which is an absolute anomaly and is not to be taken in any way as some sort of comparison. We're talking to the point where Rome would be the first city in world history to reach 1 million in population, and that would not be repeated until 1930s Victorian England. But at this time, similar cities at the same time, Alexandria had 500,000. Antioch, which was in Corinth, had 250,000. Actually, where was Antioch? It might be in modern day Turkey. I can't remember where
Yeah,
Antioch
Turkey.
is. Yeah.
Turkey, yeah.
So actually not Corinth. Athens was a meager 90,000. Carthage was 300,000, and this would have been a little bit after its height, I think, but I don't think it ever grew that much population wise. Seleucia was 150 to 250,000, and the city of Milan was 30,000. Byzantium, which would be very close to becoming the center of the Roman Empire in the next few years, was only at 20,000 people, and most Greek city-states were around or less than 100,000 in population. So that means that this Teotihuacan city-state at its height was larger than most Greek city-states. At not their height, but still where they held a lot of influence. So that goes to show like how large just this one city-state was. And it's kind of incredible that at 100 to 200 CE that there was a group of people this large that seemed to have disappeared by this time period. But that's something I really want to emphasize, that I feel like a lot of people don't understand that in Mesoamerica, you look at like Mesopotamia, like the breadbasket of the world, and think that like this is the height of civilization at the time, when in reality it is actually just the standard for everywhere else. Like Mesoamerica, completely independent to influence from Mesopotamia, is just as large, if only slightly a little smaller, than its Mesopotamian counterparts. And that is something that I think needs to be emphasized pretty often when you study Mesopotamian history, for example. So yeah, I wanted to fit that in. But I do have a question for you, Yariko. So it seems that Teotihuacans focused more on soft power through trade than dominance through war. And how did this affect their role among other cultures at this time, if you know? Because like it's interesting that they're a big cultural and trade influence. But obviously it's not through like war and conquest. This is definitely through trade. You can tell by like, I'm judging it off of the map that you provided. Compared to their actual holding area. So like how does this compare to say the Aztecs, which I know is not the correct terminology for it. The Mexicans, I believe, is the right terminology. How does it compare to the Mexicans, where they quite literally conquered their way through most of it?
Well, it's first of all not super known how they held this influence. We believe that people went to these cities to do, like religious offerings to Quetzalcoatl or to Tlaloc or to whoever else, right? So
Right.
we have like this idea that other peoples from other cities went into pilgrimage to Teotihuacan. And then they came back to their towns and went back and forth doing trade and stuff, right? Because in order to sustain a population this big, you have to trade. Like that's something that has to happen.
You do. You can look at Rome for that.
Exactly. So we believe that like they were not really interested in like a hegemonic kind of power where they control cities. It was more like people from other places just seem to like them, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a clear form of soft power, in the sense of like we will influence you through cultural exchange rather than it being. I guess if you played Civ 6, this would be a cultural victory, is like what this would
Pretty
be.
much.
It would be a cultural victory.
You see the influence of their religion everywhere else, right? Like all the civilizations that arose after Teotihuacan, they had, to a degree, some sort of form of cult to Quetzalcoatl, which was one of the big gods in Mesoamerica. Also Tlaloc, which is the god of rain. So, for example, the Mayas had Kukulkan, which is Quetzalcoatl, but in Mayan. And they also had a god of rain called Chak, which is, and they share similarities. A bit different, but they share some similarities, right?
Right, that makes sense. Also, like that Tlaloc looks like he's been like have like a big brick dropped in his head, and he's like, oh.
Yeah, yeah, he has like a mask. It's supposed to look like a cloud, because
right, yeah. No, I get it. It's just funny to think about.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely.
All right, so are you ready for the next slide?
Yeah, we can go for the next slide.
All right.
So next one are the Toltecas.
Whoa! Okay, hold on. Before we start, bro, look at this guy, bro. Bold and brash. I love the pose.
Yeah, that's the Chuck Mall.
That's crazy. Yo, thank you for the follow, Neymar Jr. Welcome to the cult.
You know what's the craziest thing? So the Toltecas are in center Mexico, right? They rose to
Right.
power around 650 CE to 1168 CE. And that specific figure, the Chacmol, appears in Chichen Itza too, right?
Wow.
Which is very, very far away. And it's literally in the center of one of the
So
temples.
so this is Tolteca, which is the green area on the map, correct?
Right, yes.
So
Correct.
Yariko is explaining that this statue shows in the green area as well as Chichen Itza over here at the top of the Yucatan Peninsula. That is how far
Yeah.
away they are from one another.
Yeah.
And this same figure is showing in both areas.
Right.
Just giving a little view for chat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's kind of wild. So this shows us the area of influence that Tolteca had, right? Either by trade or culture. Um, we believe that they fell from power thanks to constant raids by the Chichimeca tribes from the north. Basically, they just got got raided until they ceased to exist. Um, we do know that they had a monarchy-based government, and that their name means Tula resident. Tula is the name of a city.
Okay.
And
right. Like in the center
yeah,
of the map up there. Okay.
yeah, exactly. And they also made these pyramids in step form, and they also built the biggest pyramid in the world by volume, uh,
Wow.
which means the name is Tlachihualtepetl, which means handmade mountain.
That is actually a
Um,
sick name for a building.
yeah, yeah. It's 66 meters tall, which is not super tall, but it has a 450 by 450 meters base,
Holy shit.
and it's
What is the
believed to
volume of
be,
that?
oh, it's fucking ginormous.
Like how
I can
tall
Google
is
it.
it?
If you see the link I sent before, you can see it like all the way to the bottom. It's literally
I was
the
hoping more of like
green
a
one.
figure, but like just on width alone, like so that means like the base of the pyramid alone, it is
Right.
202 kilometers, which is
Yeah.
insane. What is the kilometer to mile? 125 miles at the base in volume. So it's not like volume, but it spans an area of 125 miles. That's actually insane. Holy
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah,
That's
that's a big one.
crazy.
Mm, yeah, it's a big one. You can like I actually that picture in the center um is a diorama of the pyramid. We haven't even finished excavating the whole thing because it's fucking massive. And what the Spaniards did when they came, they just they built a church on the top.
That's hilarious. Like
Yeah,
sick hill anyway.
yeah, pretty much. It's believed that the whole pyramid was a temple to Quetzalcoatl too, but we don't know for sure.
That's
Another,
insane.
it's very big. Another interesting thing they built was the Tula Atlanteans. Those little, those big pyramid, not pyramids, those big figures, slightly below that picture.
Kind of look like
On
nutcrackers.
yeah, exactly. Um, I
I don't
believe
like the
that.
hollow eyes. That haunts me.
Yeah, I
The
know what
hollow
you mean.
eyeballs are scary.
I believe that the guy from JoJo's got inspired by how these guys look to make one of the characters. Unsure yet, but I saw some
Interesting.
pictures while doing research, and I was like, wait a minute, that looks kind of funny. Um, but yeah, they were an interesting and influential culture, but we don't really know exactly what happened besides being invaded by barbarians all the time. This is
Okay.
Mesoamerican History Reaper. So right now we're talking about the Tolteca, which are in center Mexico. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm redoing the math here. So it is in area, it is twice the size of the Pyramid of Giza. And it is 4,450,000 cubic cubic meters.
Right.
Which I don't know how many cubic miles that is. Cubic meters to cubic miles. Four, 5, 1, 2, 3. Okay, it's not even like a tenth of a cubic mile, but a cubic mile is a crazy amount of space, so it's not that surprising.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a very big place. Yep.
But yeah, it's massive. All right.
Yeah.
So is that it for this slide? Am I good to ask my questions?
You can ask me questions.
So, actually, I don't know. Did you inject this one recently?
What do you mean? Oh,
This
I
slide?
had a couple. No. I had a couple tidbits, but yeah.
Okay, you need to let me know when the slides are new because that will mess up my questions. Okay, so let me see here. Yeah, it was the same, kind of like the same question I had about Teotihuacan.
Right.
It looks like they are also like a small empire that has a long-reaching trade.
Right.
And so I guess like at this point the question is kind of like it must be geographical because they're in the exact same area as the Teotihuacans are.
Yeah,
or
and
were
they
rather.
they rose to power around after the Teotihuacans disappear, right? They're
Right.
close to the Teotihuacan area of influence, but they
So
literally rose to power as Teotihuacan was fading.
right. So I wonder if that it's just because it's the center of Mexico, or if it's just the geography itself making it the middle of like where all of these cultures tend to congregate.
Right.
That allows it to have that kind of soft power and influence. Because that's crazy. So I guess my other question was I asked specific questions, but I don't know why. I don't remember why I asked these questions. So we'll just skip them because I don't remember why these were asked, and they're probably in a much better context 2 weeks ago than they are now. So it's all good. Can I ask how they did trade? The logistics look like a nightmare. I mean, honestly, I think we already talked about the fact that it was mostly like on foot, like a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, practically everything was on foot and hand carts because there were no big animals here. Like we didn't have horses, we didn't have cows. And
no,
also all the transport.
That is to add. If you're looking at this map up in the top right over here, this does. Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Yo. Sorry, give me a moment, Laura. Yariko.
Good.
Welcome in, Raiders! Thank you for the raid, Smokey. My name's Hara Rae Sol. I'm an Egyptian Paraguayan sun goddess. I do War Thunder variety and history streams. Today we're doing a history stream with Yariko-san on Mesoamerica in the pre-colonial era. History of the Yucatan. So as I was saying, now if you look at... I'm in the wrong slide again. Okay, hold on. Let me get to the right slide. Okay, so... This map right here, if you're looking at this map and going like, you're telling me they took a handcart from Tula to Chiapo de Corzo? No. What's missing here is the hundreds, if not thousands of small little like less than 100 people villages in between these two cities and etc. Where it's more likely they're probably able to stop at a village on one of these pathways like every couple of miles, if even.
Definitely.
And trade there, and then it would extend further through a chain. So we're not talking like, it's not like somebody's moving the equivalent of like Byzantium to like Palestine with a handcart. We're talking like it's just straight up like passed along to that distance.
Right. Yeah, and I mean they all usually do stops along the way, right? Like maybe they do want to go the whole length, but they do stops along the way. And there's also a lot of towns and also cities along the way. So yeah.
Right. All right. So we're good to move to the Chichimeca?
Yeah, we can. So the Chichimeca are not in Mesoamerica, right? They are from Arido America, which is to the north. Um, and they are
So hold on.
very no.
Let me point
What's
that
that?
out for chat because I know they don't remember. So
Right, right,
Mesoamerica is this part. You see where the red dot is? That's about where the northern tip of Mesoamerica is. Arito America is everything north of that, except for a tall top left corner up here next to Baja California. That would be Oasis America, if I'm
right.
remembering correctly.
You're
Um,
correct. Yes.
and something that we talked about here is that Mesoamerica, which is the southern portion, is very green and luscious, while Arito America is very arid, as is given the name. So we're talking like desert, more like scavenger nomadic tribes, rather than we're looking instead of like typically the established civilizations you'll see further south or in Oasis America near the far northern border next to what is modern day U.S.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to provide that context because I know a lot of them aren't going to remember.
No, you're good. You're good. You're perfect. I mean, Arido America does extend into the U.S. Like, for example,
Right.
we would consider, for example, the Apaches. We would consider them tribes of Arido America, right? Like, because
Right.
they're in that area of the map.
No, I
But
guess like
anyway,
here's a geography question because I'm stupid. Would all of that be considered the Mojave? Like
the
the Mojave,
Mojave.
the Mojave Desert, or is that just strictly like Nevada,
I
Arizona
mean,
area?
I think the Mojave those fall into a part of Arido America, but also a part of the Mojave falls into Oasis America, right? Just like around that area. I don't know for sure, but we could check. I guess I don't know.
I'm checking it right now. I'm just curious as to like about where it ends and where it begins.
Let's see if
Okay,
there's a
no,
map.
it's specifically southwestern United States, named for the indigenous Mojave people,
Right,
southeastern California, and northwestern Nevada. So like
right,
it's typically like right above Baja California is the southernmost point it goes, but it's mostly like
right.
southeast California and like southwest Nevada. So like
Yeah,
it's just that area. It's a lot smaller.
yeah, yeah. The
Well, then I
Mojave
wonder
Desert is
what do
considered
they
part of
call?
Arido America.
I was
Mm.
actually gonna ask. I wonder what they call the desert area then for like what's like New Mexico, Texas, Arizona, and northern Mexico. Do
What do
they
you
like
mean?
really have a name for that?
I mean, that's part of Arido America too. So
Well, I understand that like we're calling it Arito America, but I wonder what like the
right.
actual term for it is.
Oh, like the natives how they called it.
No, I just mean like what like it would be described on as a map today, which like I know like isn't the
Oh,
most like accurate thing, but I'm just curious.
for example, here where I live in something known as the Great River Valley, Rio Grande Valley,
Right.
which is because the Rio Grande crosses, like between Texas and Mexico, and so areas around that area are considered to be the Rio Grande Valley. Um, yeah,
I gotcha. Well, I'll let you
but
get on to
I
the
don't know.
Chichimeca.
Yeah. Chichimeca, funny name. Um,
Very
they
scary
are.
people, despite a
I
funny name.
mean, yeah, they were considered the barbarians over here. They they were not a cohesive group of people. There were many different tribes, right? Um, they were around 1000 BCE to 1600 CE when the Spanish came, and for the Spanish, it took them a lot of work to make them assimilate, right? Because they were still being raided by the Chichimecas for over a century. So it took them like a century of trying to trade with them, trying to teach them agriculture, evangelizing, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Um, and it took like around. I remember it was one of the Catholic priests that the Spanish sent that was dealing with the Chichimeca, and he was writing in his letters that if Spain left and stops trying to evangelize these peoples, they would forget about everything in 50 years.
If even.
Yeah, if even, exactly. Um, but he wasn't even trying to be like ironic or anything. Like he legit felt
Oh
that
yeah.
way because they really didn't really care about.
Right. And we did
Um,
really touch upon this last stream on like what
right.
Christian practices taught to these peoples, like what it actually ended up meaning like. So if you want to learn more
Exactly.
about that and like see that in-depth conversation 2 weeks ago as well, our last part of this series.
Yeah. The name Chichimeca is a derogative name used by the Mesoamerican culture to refer to these barbaric Northerners, right?
So it is
They
very similar to the word barbarian as
pretty
popularized by the
much,
Romans.
pretty much, yeah. They did not build big cities. They didn't produce art besides pottery or flint utensils. They didn't preserve much of their history. Most of their history is preserved through cultures that were in touch with them, right? That had
Right.
to write about them because they were attacked by the Chichimeca. Um, it's thought that they were semi-nomadic sometimes or fully nomadic. And an interesting thing that we have to know is that the Mexica were at some point Chichimecas, right? They were,
Interesting.
yeah, the Mexica migrated from the north into the Valley of Mexico. Um, and they were a Chichimeca tribe. Um, but for example, in this picture, we have one drawing made by the Spanish of Chichimeca attacking cattle, because
Oh,
that's
hold on.
something they used to do. It's on the bottom left.
Yeah, I'm zooming in for it. We're good.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I am depicted as the Chad Chichimeca with the bow. You are depicted as the Wojak in the background without a bow, watching me shoot the cattle. Hold on, I
Definitely.
think it might be behind Yari. It is behind Yari. Okay,
Yeah,
let
it's
me move
behind me.
you real quick.
Yeah, no worries.
Just so
Let
they
me
can
move
see
you.
what I'm talking about, because it's very funny. You've got like the cool tan guy who's looking like smiling, and then you've got like
Yeah.
one guy behind him that's like, oh. Hold
Oh
on.
god, yeah.
Okay, so if you look to the left over here, the far left, there's like the one guy with the bow shooting the cattle, and there's a guy above him that's like, oh, that's so cool. Like, he looks like
Yeah.
such a dweeb.
Yeah.
Oh my lord. All right.
So we have, for example, still like we still have examples of how they used to dress, because those Chichimeca tribes existed when the Spanish were here, right? And they were able to record that. And some of them kept their traditions and they were of clothing and the way of living up until early Mexico, like
Right.
modern Mexico, right? For example, we have a picture of a goddess called Itzpapalotl, also known as the obsidian butterfly. She is the mother goddess of war, human sacrifice, and patron of death, and ruler of a paradise called Tamuanchan, which was the paradise for children that died before birth.
That's fucking sick.
I know, right?
Do
She's
you
fucking metal as fuck.
do you know why she has like claw hands and feet that are the same, and also like what
Yeah.
that red thing in her hand is?
Oh, that red thing in her heart, in her hand, is a heart,
Oh,
because
okay.
she's supposed to. Those claws she has like jaguar hands and jaguar feet, and what she does is like people who misbehave, she will hunt them down, open their rib cage, and eat their hearts.
Damn.
Yeah, she's very metal. I love
That's
her. One of my
crazy. That's
faves.
sick.
Yeah, and
So when are we getting that? When are we getting that God and Fate?
I think actually I'm not sure. I mean, in Fate she's not. I think she's in like Smite. Unsure. Because
Oh,
I saw a picture of her in Smite, but I'm not sure if she's like there or not, or it was like
that's so
fan art.
sick.
Yeah. And that's those pictures to the right are people just dressed in the traditional clothing and paint and like body paint because they did body paint a lot. Um, Mostly to appear more fearsome and stuff. I
Now,
assume.
I do have a question. I'm noticing that there are a lot of indications of um kind of animal cult religions in
Right.
like their
Yeah.
dress and wear. Is that what
Yeah.
their religion were aligned with rather than like the mainstay gods that like a lot of the civilizations had?
I would say depends because some of them, like most of them, also spoke Nahuatl, right? Um,
Right.
and they did have some of the gods that were more mainstream, quote unquote, but they also had more animal like kind of stuff, right?
I gotcha.
Yeah, like it really depended on which specific tribe we're talking about, but it's a bit of both, I guess. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Are you good for my
Yeah.
questions?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So I guess something to talk about. I mean, obviously, the nomadic people kind of. I'm writing in a lot of questions here, but they all ultimately end up at the same thing, which is essentially like them having to be nomadic is obviously why they are nomadic. Why they're a raider like culture. It's simply because of their geography and their
Hmm.
rather lack thereof diet.
Right.
Um, and something that I touched upon a lot 2 weeks ago, and that want to touch upon here as well, is that typically you can tell what a society holds highest by their supreme god. Um,
Right.
and that would be obviously their supreme god being its papalotl, um, is obviously like
Yeah.
warfare, sacrifice, things like that are things that they hold most dear to their culture. And that must be because they are a raid like culture because that is their only way to really survive coming out of the Aredo Americas.
Right.
Um, or Aredo America. So that's something to kind of think about is it not only seems like to them that like war is a necessity, but it is such a necessity that has also become a religion, fully a way of life, both spiritually and in the physical world.
Oh,
And
definitely.
that's something very interesting to think about. Um,
Definitely. And we can see this line of thought continue with the Mexica when they rose to power because they were also chichimecas at some point, right? Like
right,
the patron god of the Mexica was Huitzilopochtli, which is the god of war, right?
right. Now that
Mm.
is also something to think about, especially that depiction we just looked at the bottom left. Um, is that you notice that the Spanish depict them shooting cattle,
Right.
surrounded by quite literally only cacti and huts. So that shows that like they're probably most likely nomadic because cattle was their main source of food, much like the plains peoples in North America.
Right.
So that also probably likely explains why they were very nomadic. It's also,
Yeah.
very hard to have reprisals against you from these not civilized, well, civilized, not in like the derogatory term, just in like the term alone, like people that have a civilization. That's
Yeah,
probably
like
why they
cells.
also rated as well, is because rating those peoples made it much easier because you're nomadic. What are they gonna like attack your house back? By the time they get back, you've moved, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's much harder to have those kind of reprisals, so it gives you much more benefit to raiding. Because
Yeah.
not only do you have to work not as hard to get shit, but also they can't
Hmm.
really attack you back. So you just kind of get what
Yeah,
you want.
exactly.
So you follow
Yeah,
the cattle,
it's
and when the cattle aren't there, you raid your neighbors and you leave looking for the cattle again. And it
pretty
probably worked
much.
very well.
Yeah, yeah,
But
definitely.
that that
And
that really
also
does.
like
Go ahead.
considering that most of the cultures in Mesoamerica were city states, so like probably communication between them or the trade routes were very vulnerable, probably.
Right,
So yeah,
exactly. Not a lot of protection. We're not talking about vast empires here.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I was actually going to ask, so did the Chichimeca assimilate earlier or later than their like civilization counterparts?
Oh, way later, way later.
Way later? Okay.
Yeah. For example, when the
And that's just
Spanish
because they
came,
were so much harder to pin down by the Spanish conquistadors.
kinda like they couldn't pin them down, and also they just didn't really have any interest in having a settled life. Like their ways were nomadic, right? Um,
Right.
when the Spanish came, they allied themselves with a bunch of other, like for example, with the Tlaxcaltecas and other cultures that were vassals of Tenochtitlan, because
Right.
they hated Tenochtitlan. They hated being under the rule of Tenochtitlan. So when they saw an opportunity to rise against them, they took it, right? And what the Spanish did was they offered the nobility of these other city states places of power in government, right? Like they incorporated those nobles into the Spanish nobility per se, right? Um, so the transition was smoother because you already had a government, right? You already have noble houses and government officials, and they just like changed the signs from Nahuatl to Spanish, right?
Right, right.
Basically. But for the Chichimeca, they didn't have that. They were not settled. They didn't have a. They spoke Nahuatl, yes, but they didn't have a government
Forms of
system.
writing and like
Yeah,
cataloging,
exactly.
things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That does make me wonder though. So obviously a lot of we talked about in our first part of this series. We talked
Mm.
about how the brutality of European type of warfare would have shocked and stunned the tribes or not the tribes rather, but the peoples of Mesoamerica because as we've talked about, warfare around the world meant something much different than it did in Europe at the time. Um,
Right,
which was typically just skirmishes. You'd capture a couple people, sacrifice them to your gods, or trade them back for your friends, and that'd be it.
right,
You win, they become your vassal. You don't wipe them out or anything. They pay you money. Meanwhile, Europe was we will fight to the last person, and everybody's dying.
right.
So all of these cultures were surprised by the brutality of the Spanish, where they would kill without any kind of seeming remorse. Do you think that the Chichimeca would have been as shocked considering how brutal they were compared to their counterparts?
I don't think so. Um, because I mean they were pretty used to raiding, right? And I've as far as I know, and as far as I've researched, it all points down to that they were pretty ruthless themselves. Um,
Right. I mean, you kind of have to be
and
when you have a god of death that rips hearts out of bad people, and her heaven is the land of unborn children. Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, and they did share some other gods from the Mexica pantheon, right? But uh, those types of wars in Mesoamerica, I won't say they didn't exist because they did, right? Like there were cases, for example, in Yucatan and Guatemala, we have evidence of intercity state war that ended up with one of the city states completely destroying the other city state, like
right,
killing everyone.
and that did exist. And I'm not. I
Yeah,
want to specify for chat. I know you know this. But I want to specify for chat. I'm not saying that
yeah.
it didn't exist in areas outside of Europe. I'm saying in Europe it became the standard, whereas everywhere
Oh
else
yeah,
it was not the standard. It was an outlier.
yeah, yeah.
There was also a moment when the Spanish invaded. I forget what the name of the city was, um, but one that was revolting against the Spanish used or revolting against the Aztecs with the Spanish, used the
Mm,
Spanish and the revolt against the Aztecs as a reason to essentially completely massacre and wipe out their neighbor city that was like
right.
loyal to the Aztecs, who they'd been in like a bitter rivalry with for a very long
Oh,
time.
there's the
Um,
Tlaxcaltecas. Yeah, those were the
right, yeah, the
guys.
Tlaxcaltecas. That's exactly who it was.
Yeah.
And they were massacring people to the last man, woman, and child. So it was
Oh yeah,
not
they
rare,
were.
not especially not in this
Yeah.
time, but it was just it wasn't the standard. The
Yeah,
standard was a much
for
more
the status
political
quo.
game. Warfare was a much more political game than it was a bloodbath.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, for centuries, the status quo was more of a show or a contest than an actual war, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Um, yeah, yeah, and we will touch a bit on that on later slides, but yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
All right. We ready to move on to the next one?
yeah, definitely.
Okay. We are finally at the Mexica.
All right,
I do
so
believe. Yes.
yeah, the Mexica. So the Mexica or Mexica, those are known as the Aztecs, right? We do not call them Aztecs, and we're going to explain that later. But the
I would
Mexica,
I would also like to
yeah,
add, like, usually when people think, if you're thinking of like before coming into the stream, if you're thinking of like Mesoamerican culture, this is who you were probably thinking of. These are the people of the
oh yeah,
calendar. This is the city of Tenochtitlan in the middle of the giant fucking lake. Uh
yeah,
the emblem on the Mexican flag, what is essentially like the predecessors to the modern Mexican national identity. This is who
pretty
this
much,
is. We're at
yeah,
that point.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And compared to other cultures in Mesoamerica, the Mexica were pretty young, right? Because they rose to power around 13, 1325 CE to
Mm.
1521 CE, which is when the Spanish came and defeated them, basically. Um, they were a Nahuatl Chichimeca civilization that founded Tenochtitlan in Lake Texcoco. Lake Texcoco was a lake that's in the Valley of Mexico. It was a really, really big lake. Right now, it doesn't exist anymore because Mexico City is literally built on top of the lake.
Right.
Um, and the government form that they had was an empire ruled by Atlatuani, which means the one who speaks. Um, it basically the way they saw government was you had to have charisma and be a good orator, right? You have to be able to speak well to be a
An
ruler.
actual head of state instead of a warrior king. This is
Yeah,
a that
yeah,
is
yeah.
a it might not sound like a big difference for a lot of people, but for cultures where you're progressing in civilization, that is a major progression
Right.
for civilization, is going from somebody that is leader because they hold all of the food storage, say like a shogun, um changing from like a warrior area leader or a rich, like a I guess put it this way, we're going from, instead of like a major progression in civilization is when leaders go from being people who are strong, have large militaries, or hold a lot of resources to instead being people that are very charismatic, great orators, actual heads of state. Is essentially what we're moving towards. That is a major progression for a government, especially one that is in 1325 CE.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, they were also warriors, right? But it
Right,
was
of
more
course
like
they were, but it's not like you're just picking the
yeah,
best warrior.
exactly, exactly. They had a noble, a system of nobility existed. Um, the Tlatoanis would be chosen by the noble houses, or they would rule by inheritance, right? We actually saw them choose a Tlatoani when the Spanish invaded, and because we had Moctezuma, which was the guy that greeted Cortez, right? And he was the actual dynastic heir of. I mean, currently, he was the Tlatoani, the emperor of Mexico back then. But then during that struggle, people in Tenochtitlan were not really happy with what was happening because Moctezuma wanted to appease Cortez, and he kept giving them gold and gifts and all that. And people around Moctezuma saw that Cortez was kind of manipulating him.
Yeah, kind of a
And
snake. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And they were not happy about that, right? And one day, like Cortez started to like fight in Tenochtitlan. Moctezuma went out and tried to like calm the crowd. But there are two stories here, right? One of the stories is that he was stoned to death by the crowd, and the other story is that someone in Cortez's army stabbed him while he was doing that. So
Right.
yeah, we don't know. We don't know.
Now, I will say,
For sure.
Gabriel, the idea that the native peoples confused the Spanish as gods is rather complete myth. We can dig into that question more later when
Yeah,
we get to the question segment. So make sure
there are
you
some
bring
people
that
that
back
believe
up.
it.
Oh, hold on, let me
Yeah.
finish. So make sure you bring that back up towards the end, and we'll talk about that in deeper there. But that is mostly incorrect. That is actually almost entirely incorrect.
Yeah. But yeah, the Mexica Empire was not ruled solely by Tenochtitlan. It was actually a triple alliance between three different city states. These city states are Tenochtitlan, Tlacopan, and Texcoco, which are
Gotcha.
really, if you
You
zoom in
can
on the map,
see,
you can see them in the map.
yeah, you can see
right?
them. So we have Tenochtitlan as the star. If you
Yeah.
look at the red line, that's Tlacopan, which I think you said was the other one, correct?
Yes, Tlacopan.
And then
yes.
Texcoco is all the way across the fucking lake. So
Yeah. They are kind of far away, but they were, and all those little city. I mean, all those little dots are also like city states, right?
right.
That were ruled by them. But actually, we have, for example, the one of the rulers from Texcoco was called Netzahualcoyotl, and he was known for being a poet, right? So we actually have poetry from him. Still exists, and it's very interesting poetry.
Interesting.
Yeah, Tenochtitlan was also thought to have around 200,000 people or more at the time when the Spanish came in. And when they came to Tenochtitlan, I think it's believed that it was the most densely populated place on Earth at that point in time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So this would have been 1325, which would make a lot of sense because Rome would have collapsed by this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
I think would also
We
like
can-
to just kind of set a picture. So this is like, I know that it's kind of off in the corner, but this is what a depiction of what it was thought to have looked like is. So like a lot of people, I think Hernan Cortez, like, obviously wouldn't have seen the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, but in the way that he described it, it is much to be described, much like the Babylonian Hanging Gardens of Babylon.
Yeah, I mean, he did say that it was the Venice of the Americas, right?
Exactly, yeah. Venice of the Americas. And it was likely larger than Venice at this time.
Oh, definitely larger. People did move around using canoes. There were three really big bridges that connected the island to the shore of the lake. We call them calzadas, which means like a like a food street, I guess. I don't know what's the word in English.
A food street?
But like you walk it, you know.
Oh,
No
like
cars.
I mean, I think we'd still call that like a road.
Like a road, yeah.
Like even if there's not cars on it, I think we still call it a road. Like there's like a footpath, but a footpath is like something you'd have like in your garden. So
right. Now, yeah, this is like a specific word, calzada. Anyway, they did have in the center of the city. They had a really big temple complex. I think I have some pictures of that on the next slide. But basically, when the Spanish conquered all of this, they demolished the pyramids and built a cathedral on top. Because that was kind of their thing, right?
right.
And they
No, I
used
do
the same
ask
stones.
if Mexico City was built over the lake. Did they just like bury the lake with dirt, or did it just dry up?
No. I mean, they just buried it with dirt, basically.
What the
Which
fuck?
is it's another it's a really interesting thing, right? Since the area of Mexico, current Mexico City, is still in that area, and it's still prone to flooding because it was a lake. Um, we see a lot of buildings from like half a century ago are sinking because they're too heavy.
Oh
you
my
know?
god. Y'all literally have the
Yeah.
exact same issue as Venice. It's just y'all got rid
Yeah.
of the water.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's
Also,
crazy.
since it's on a lake bed, that means the soil is not as compact and
Right, it's
solid.
very soft.
Yeah. So whenever there's an earthquake, even though we don't have earthquake, like there's not like a specific tectonic fault that crosses Mexico City. But if there is a an earthquake in Oaxaca, which is like on the coast, the shockwaves will move like all the way to Mexico City, and then when they hit the Lake Texcoco area, they get like amplified because they start bouncing from the
Yeah,
bedrock
because
to
it's
the
like you
top.
built on sand. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we've had really strong earthquakes in Mexico City, right? Like very strong. The
Interesting.
biggest one was like 4 years ago, I think. Actually massive, but yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
Dude, imagine like at the one of the Atlatani at the beginning of Tenochtitlan, like getting
Mm.
transported to the future to modern day Mexico City, being like, "What the fuck happened to my lake? Where's my lake?
Yeah, I mean,
My
definitely.
temple? My lake? Is this
Yeah,
bullshit?"
definitely. And actually, there are conservation efforts being done to rebuild some of those temples in the center of Tenochtitlan, right? We
Right.
cannot rebuild them completely because the cathedral is literally there. And that's
Right, and a
also
lot of it
a
was
World
just
Heritage.
completely wiped out.
Yeah, and it's also it's like the cathedral is also like an important cultural heritage site, right? So it
Right.
would be it would be irresponsible to destroy it to rebuild the temples. Sadly,
Right.
um,
Ironically, it's one of those things where, like, yes, it destroyed history to build it, but it is so old now that it is itself
yeah,
history, and it would be a shame to
yeah,
destroy it.
exactly, literally. And but it's really cool when you visit the cathedral. They are doing excavations below it, right? And there are some parts where they put glass panes so you can see underneath. And
Right, right,
you can actually see the pyramid below the cathedral. It's really cool. And next to it there's also an open top excavation where you can actually see part of the temples being like worked on. It's
that's really
very
sick.
cool stuff. And in some parts of the cathedral, you can actually see the stones that still have Mexica motifs, right? Or hieroglyphs or whatever. Because they use
Right.
those same stones to build the cathedral and other buildings around Mexico City, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, we ready for some questions?
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay, so my first question is, why did the Mexica become the most prominent, and why was Mexico named specifically after them and not another Mesoamerican culture? Like, why does,
Right.
well, I guess the main question is, like, why does modern day Mexican nationality look back so closely to the Mexica?
Right. Well, lots of ways to tackle this, right? But I think the reason is because when the Spanish came to Mexico, the Mexica were the biggest empire when they made land, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they had this custom of usually keeping the names of the places they conquered, right? So, for example, when they went to Yucatan, they asked locals, "What's the name of this place?" And they responded in Mayan, something that means "I don't understand you," but sounds kind of like Yucatan,
Oh shit.
and that's why
Yeah.
it's called like that.
That's the
so,
exact same thing as in North America. Crazy how that works.
I know, right? It's insane. Um, so they decided, I guess, to keep that name for the new Spain, in this case Mexico, and
I'm sorry
also
to interrupt, but all I can
no
think of is that
worries.
the Spanish like walk up and they're like, "Hi, what's this called?" And the guy's like, "Yucatan." Like, what's this guy saying? And he's like, "Ah, so you're all Yucatanians." And the guy is just like that previously didn't understand the Spanish guy is just like, "Ah, fuck." Like, just like, God damn it.
Yeah, pretty much, pretty much. But yeah, I believe that that's kind of the reason why they decided to keep the name. And
Right.
once we kicked them out, it was decided to keep the name Mexico for the country because it kind of united, like national identity by then. And
Right.
being a Mexican didn't mean like there was no racial divide. I mean, even though in the society there was, right? But the whole idea is that Mexicans are mixed, a mix of the Spanish that came and the
And the
natives
native
that
peoples.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. Um,
What is the
so
term for that again? I'm so sorry. Mestizo.
oh
Is
no,
that correct?
mestizo, yeah,
Yeah, that's
mestizo,
what it
yeah,
is. Okay. I forgot
yeah.
about it, then I asked, and I was like, oh, wait, it's mestizo.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. We had a really interesting chase system back when the Spanish were here. We had the Spanish, then we had the criollos, which were sons or daughters of Spanish people, but that were born in the New World, right? And
Right.
then we have the mestizos,
And then
where
you had the pure blooded native peoples.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean,
Right.
we also had like the mestizos were a mix between a Spanish and a native, and then there was also like a mix between a black slave and
Right.
a Spanish. I think it was called mulatto, I believe. I don't know. There's like 10 different categories of people. It was insane.
You see, that is also like a really weird, like if you make the comparison to like United States or I guess North American racial perceptions, the Spanish see a mestizo as like, of course, they're still lesser than Spanish, but and I'm not saying this does not make it better. It's still horrible. But
Right,
they're
right.
higher. Like a mestizo is a higher up on the caste system than a 100% pure-blooded native
Yeah,
person. But like
yeah,
in the
yeah.
United States, like for like racial segregation, for example, it was like, all right, well, you're like 1/18th African American. To the bottom, you go with the rest of them. You know what I mean?
Right.
There
Yeah,
was
yeah,
no
yeah.
like gray area for that. It's like if you have like a drop, you're at the bottom, like just
Yeah, yeah,
straight up
yeah.
with the rest of them. There's no higher above it. Like it doesn't
Right.
count.
Yeah. Yeah, and over here, that chase system started to like kind of disappear over the years because it was just so fucking complicated,
It's
and
also just
everyone
because,
everyone became super mixed too,
right? I was
right?
about to say it's because literally every single person became mixed. How do you have a caste system when literally everybody is the same heritage? It's impossible.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the reasons I believe we don't really have a big racial issue over here. It's more like a
It's why you have a
class issue,
yeah, you have a very cemented national identity.
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like over here, you don't see people fighting over, oh, you're brown, oh, you're white, oh, you're black, blah blah blah. It's more like it's more of a class, like
Right.
economic kind of divide than race.
Right, right. So it does make me
Yeah,
ask, so like kind of like how in like African American culture, like the darker your skin color, the more like African American you're seen like as a positive way, something that's flipped. Is that something that
right.
happens in like mestizo communities where like if you have like lighter or darker skin, you're seen as more negatively or positively? Because it's not just African American, like Korean, it's the same way. The lighter your skin as a Korean, like the more favorably you're seen, stuff like that. Is that an
Right.
issue that is ongoing today?
I wouldn't say it's like a reality here. Usually, what happens is there's this common quote unquote joke that uh, people, usually your parents are like, oh, try to get like a white a white partner to improve the genome, you know.
Right, right.
It's
But
more
it's
of a
not ever
joke
taken
because it's
seriously. Yeah, it's like
no,
tongue in
exactly. It's
cheek for
not
the
serious.
history of the peoples. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I get
yeah,
it.
exactly. And
I get it.
there's also, I mean, there's always people that are on the fringes, right? There's people that
Right.
they
There's
take
always gonna be
the whole,
weirdos.
oh,
Of
I'm
course.
super native or super white or whatever.
Right,
Weirdos are
right.
everywhere, but on the like on average, I don't really see anyone being like, "Oh, the more brown you are, the more indigenous you are." Right? No one is
Right, right.
flexing. No one
Nobody
is
gives
really
a shit. Yeah.
flexing. Yeah, no one, no one
Yeah.
makes because
There's
we
a
have
very
been.
homogenized identity.
Oh, definitely, definitely, because we have been taught since we were really, really small, like since elementary school, basically, that we are all Mexicans, right?
Yeah, you're all both. You're a combination of both cultures. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
all
exactly,
mestizo. Makes
exactly.
sense. All
Yeah.
right. So I guess my next question would be how were the Mexica apparently able to create such a vast empire when prior to this we saw that that was kind of impossible outside of like a soft power? Because this definitely seems to be
Right.
hard power. So like where were they able to how were they able to make such conquests to be able to form
Right.
such a massive empire? Was it the Triple Alliance between Tlacopan, Tenochtitlan, and Texcoco? Was that the reason? Were the three able to band together and like essentially expand the empire because it was three city states that it considered, kind of like a triumvirate, a Roman triumvirate, rather than
Right.
being like by themselves?
I think that did help a lot. Um, they also had the powerhouse of production in Tenochtitlan, because that like the way they farmed, the way they made farms, helped them sustain such big populations. Right? They
Right,
had a really strong education system. They had very well um, trained military, and also religion played a major role because in these city states and all the little towns around them which shared the same gods and the same customs, or maybe not the same but very similar, um, they had this thing called the flower wars, which were not like a traditional war, right? Let's say you had a dispute with a neighboring city, and you talk it over and you decide that you're gonna have a quote unquote friendly war on set date on set place. You go meet the enemy army, and instead of everyone fighting to their death, they just pick like, I don't know, 100 people from each side, and they fight each other. And they take both sides take some captives to sacrifice, and then they agree to some terms, and that's it.
right,
Right?
right.
So obviously the smaller city states were not like super eager to attack Tenochtitlan or be like, oh, we're against you, because they were smaller. They had
They had to go up
lesser.
against three cities instead of one, which
Yeah,
had already larger populations.
exactly.
So
So
like so like for example, like while it wasn't an all out war, they still couldn't like they couldn't accept the losses of taking those few people to be
right.
sacrificed
Yeah.
repeatedly, like like the three cities who had combined together could.
Yeah, exactly, definitely. And most of them just kind of endured the thing, and they did resent the Triple Alliance a lot, right? And
Right.
like for example, the Tlaxcaltecas, which were brought before, they did when the Spanish came, they allied themselves with them, and they also found more people to ally themselves with to fight the Mexica Triple Alliance, right? I think
Right.
at some point also Tlacopan broke off from the alliance to help the Spanish, which is insane. By the time everyone
Yeah,
noticed
because
what was
they're
happening, they were
so
like,
if we're
"Oh
looking at the
shit!"
map, yeah, Tlacopan has not only a direct route to Tenochtitlan, but it is right across the water. Speaking of
Yeah.
quick pause, thank you so much for the follow, Vove. Welcome into the cult. If you're newer here, I promise I am usually way more interactive with chat, but this is our history week and we have a guest, so we're doing an academic presentation. Sorry for being a little absent with chat. I'm very happy to have you guys here, though, as I'm sure Yariko is as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, as we were saying, so Tlacopan, which is over here on the left, you can see the little red 2. To the left of that is Tlacopan, and they revolted against Tenochtitlan, who were part of the Triple Alliance between Texcoco up here at the top right, the Star, which is Tenochtitlan, and Tlacopan, which is across from the 2, which means that when Tlacopan essentially fell, I mean, you have a direct access to Tenochtitlan. Like it's
Yeah.
Tenochtitlan has 3 places that it needs to defend, which I'm assuming are those 3 main routes, and one of them has been completely compromised.
Yeah.
So, because you could easily perform a defense at that center city on that island at Tepeyakak, if I think I'm saying that right,
Yeah.
Tepeyakak, and then
Yeah.
Tlacopan would be your like 3 defensive positions, and it looks like that becomes a lot harder when one of those 3 positions suddenly becomes overrun. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and also you have to take into account that smallpox was
yeah,
ravaging the city, right?
as I believe a
Um,
famine was as well.
yeah. I mean, they did could the Spanish perform a siege on the city, so they couldn't trade, right? Like they had
Right,
some degree of autonomy, but at like in the end, they just couldn't endure the siege.
right. Because
Yeah.
like as we were talking about, Tenochtitlan is a massive city, probably more than 100 to 200,000 people.
Yeah.
Which means, much like the city of Rome at the time, its imports for like grain and things like that would be massive. So it's kind
Oh
of
yeah.
like if you go to Rome and it has 1 million people and you suddenly like strangle off their grain imports from North Africa. The city
Yeah.
very quickly will no longer have 1 million people. Very
Oh
quickly.
yeah.
Even if
Very
there's not
quickly.
a famine, even if there's not disease, everybody will leave because there's
Yeah.
no fucking food. So
Yeah. And they're
it's
gonna
it's an
start fighting
artificial
each other.
famine.
Yeah. They will start fighting each other for, you know, like some people will want to yield, some people will want to continue enduring the siege or whatever. But yeah, it was not a good time to be in Tenochtitlan when that happened.
Right.
Um, yeah,
All right. So we ready for the next slide?
yeah, we can go to the next slide.
All right. So this is a deeper look at Tenochtitlan.
Yes. So the city, there's the Mexica had this myth, right? Because they believe that they were coming from a place called Aztlan, which was like their origin myth kind of thing, right? And the gods, which supposedly told them, you will find a snake, an eagle eating a snake, standing on top of a cactus tree, on top of an island, and that's where you have to build your city, right? So I think they were traveling around northern Mexico and central Mexico for, I don't know, 100 years or some bullshit like that, and eventually found that place in the Lake Texcoco and decided to build their city there. That's the drawing on the left corner, by the way. Like they were like, oh my god,
Oh, like
that's what
how
the
like all
gods
psyched they
mentioned.
look. Like they're literally like Wojak pointing. They're like,
Yeah, and this is obviously a
also,
modern painting, right?
right, obviously. I think it's also really funny to think about, like, obviously, like, a god did, well, to them it may have happened, but obviously in a realistic sense, a god did not come down, tell them to look for this, and they wandered for 100 years to find it. In reality, it was probably like, hey, some dude took some peyote and said we gotta go find this cool image, and then they were
Right,
walking around, they were like, whoa, that's sick! We're definitely putting our city here. Kind of like
right.
Minecraft, where like you start a Minecraft
Yeah.
server and you
Oh,
run around for a
definitely.
little bit, and then you're like, "Whoa! All right, this is the spot." Like,
Exactly.
also thank you for the follow,
And
Rick Seeger. Welcome to the cult.
and next to that picture to the right, we have a stone slab. That one's really big too. It's like I think like 2 meters tall, something like that.
Wow.
Where we see the same depiction, right, from the myth.
And then is that
And
it to the right, but like more clearly drawn?
yeah, basically,
Okay.
yes. That's it.
So what
Yeah.
is the thing at the bottom? Is that a god that is spouting up the cactus?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't remember.
Because like it looks like a person.
It
Because
looked
like
like
the
a
things,
head. Yeah.
yeah, but the thing at the bottom right that it's connected to look like 2 feet. So like if you look up, the legs go up to knees, and then it's like laying down with its knees up.
Right.
The head is on upside down, but
Yeah.
interesting.
I'm not really sure, honestly. I don't remember that part.
That
Um
peyote man goes hard.
definitely. Definitely. And obviously we have a Fate character based on Tenochtitlan. That
On
little
wait,
girl
on the
over there.
city?
Yeah.
It's based on the city,
Yeah.
not the god. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, I think she's based on Tlaloc, but she pilots a mech called Tenochtitlan, something like that.
Oh, okay,
I
that
don't
makes
know.
more sense.
I don't follow
That
Fate
is
that
really
well.
sick, though. If only,
Yeah.
like, honestly, some of the stuff in Fate-Go is so fucking sick.
It goes so hard. Then to the right of that, we have a diorama of the main temple complex in the center of the city. That
Also, I
picture actually.
apologize if I'm zooming in, chat, and it, like, zooms out weird and then back in. I don't have brain damage. My mouse wheel's fucked up, so...
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. Yeah, that's basically the main temple complex. We can see some of the main structures: the temple of the god, of the sun, the temple of the moon. Um, they had a bunch of rituals over there. They also did human sacrifice a lot because that was important for their gods. They believed that they had to sacrifice people in order to keep the cosmos going, right?
Right.
Because the gods needed human blood. That was the thing.
It was essentially
Um,
like, if you don't make enough sacrifices, the sun doesn't come up and we get no crops, so we die. Yeah.
pretty much, pretty much. Um, the city was nicknamed the Venice of the New World by the Spanish. 212,500 people were believed to be living there when the Spanish got there. The way the Mexica built the city was with a system called chinampas, which is a very interesting
Is that the upper right
building.
picture?
Yes, that is the upper right picture. You can zoom in if you want.
I am, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what they do is they make a frame. Like first, they make a frame on the lake, right? And then they start filling it with debris. It could be broken pottery, human excrements, trash. Like literally, they start filling it, right? And then on top of that, they covered it with soil. On the edges of that man-made little island, they plant these really tall trees. I think they're called
This says
aguejotes,
willow
something like that.
trees.
Yeah, willow trees in English, yeah. But in Spanish we call them aguejotes or something like that.
I gotcha.
Yeah. And basically what those trees will do is they will keep the shape of the man-made island, right? And reinforce the walls.
Right. So it's much
And
like, chat, if you don't know, like, a big reason why you don't destroy, like, trees and things like that is because root systems are what keeps a lot of ground in place, and keeps things from, like, mudslides happening. So not only is it a positive in the sense of the tree will suck up and pull out any excess water left in the soil, which is a big bonus, but it'll also hold the ground together with its actual root system. So
Yeah.
when, like, there's flooding or anything like that, it's less likely to cause things like a mudslide or to wash out these essentially canals and isthmuses that they're building. It is kind of like very integral to just kind of agriculture, period. And it actually took Europeans in North America, I believe, a rather embarrassing long amount of time to figure that out. We forget that to this very day with environmental changes. But they were able to
Yeah.
find this out very quickly, and that's how essentially like these structures were able to be essentially built on or right next to water without
Right.
collapsing every couple of weeks.
Oh, definitely. And they basically expanded the city using this system, right? Because the chinampas, like in this picture, they seem very small, but the chinampas can be absolutely massive, right?
Right, they
I've
start
been
adding
there.
up.
Oh no, definitely. And they just made them really, really big. Um, they use them for habitation, for food production. They build temples on top of them, or administrative, like uh, government buildings, anything. And the whole city started to expand, and that's how they were able to sustain a population that big. Because not only chinampas are extra agricultural land, they're also very, very, they're well irrigated. They're very fertile soil because you build them on organic matter, right?
Mhm.
So very useful for that kind of purpose. And the people in central Mexico still use this system to build agricultural land,
Right.
right? You can actually see the chinampas still in a part of Mexico called Xochimilco. Very cool place.
Okay. So
Yeah,
I are we ready for my questions?
yeah, go for it.
Um so if I'm not mistaken, so we had Tenochtitlan,
Hmm.
and then we had, I believe, another version of Mexico City, and now we have the modern version of Mexico City.
Right.
Outside of the founding myth, is there just like a reason as to why this spot specifically was so important that three different cities for three different nationalities or civilizations were built? Was it just simply convenience or like shared history?
Well, I think for the Spanish when they conquered, it was convenience, right? Because the city was
Hmm.
already there and built,
And it
and
was
the
a
people
center.
were, yeah, it was in the center of Mexico, which made things easy. It was on a very fertile area. Well, it was already well connected to other places because the Mexica did have a decent road network. Um, they so I think it was just convenience, right? And it
Right.
became the capital of the New Spain, the colony. So when the Independence War started, and more like when the Independence War ended, and we took the city, it was decided because by that point it had been the capital of the New Spain for like 300 years ish, something like that. So it was the de facto capital of the area, right?
Hmm.
Like all the government buildings were there, all the important people were there. So that had to be the place for the capital.
Right. The essentially the political and physical infrastructure were just already there. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
pretty much, pretty much.
I guess my next question, kind of the last one for this slide. For example, like well, actually, never mind. This one's already been answered. I was gonna ask, like, are there old parts of buildings still found connected to modern day buildings?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
reused, kind of like how in like Rome, for example, you'll occasionally like see that like the old palisades of ancient Rome are sometimes um built in
Yeah.
between buildings because you had this time period where people would just build into the walls because it's free structural foundation for buildings. And then those houses would be built on top of new houses, and the new houses would be built on those. And then before you know it, you're four slabs of concrete away from an old ancient wall that nobody knows about 200 years
Right, right,
later.
right, right,
Um,
right. Yeah, actually, there are a bunch of places that are like that in Mexico City and in other parts of the country, right? I'm
right.
gonna send you a picture on the M's of a specific place in Mexico City called La Plaza de las Tres Culturas, or the Three Cultures Plaza, where you can actually see a Mexica temple, and next to it there's a Spanish era church. And then
Right.
next to everything else, you can see modern buildings because the city just encroached around them, right?
Right. Interesting.
So yeah, and actually in that place is where the massacre as before the Olympics happened. Funny
Really?
place. Yep,
Damn.
yep, yeah,
All right. So you ready to move to the next slide?
yeah. We can move on.
All right. I also want to add, so the one down here, that's the God of War, the Fate design. This is the one that you and I were freaking out about when we were making this slide.
Yeah.
Huitzilopochtli, Peachly, I think I said that right.
No,
Oh my
with
god, that Fate design goes so fucking hard.
it goes really hard with
That is a
Shiloposti.
crazy design.
Yeah, the god of war and human sacrifice. I will. I did add a specific slide on which possibly later. We'll probably see it or not. We'll see. We'll find out. But yeah.
Right. Stuff like this makes me like, I love my design, especially my base design, but I see stuff like this and I'm like, fuck. Like, I gotta figure out who did this shit. I want to redesign again. Cause like it
I
goes
really
so hard.
I really like how they actually incorporated stuff from the actual god into the
Right.
design, right? Because you can see like she has like a whip, and which
Right.
supposedly has his weapon is a fire snake, which is kind of like a whip, right? So
Right.
that
Well,
is kind of cool. Huh?
I think what's also interesting is like God of War and human sacrifice, so her hands are permanently bloodied, which
Yeah,
is interesting. But I think that
yeah.
the main thing about her design that I fucking love is just the headpiece. Like
Oh yeah, the
the
headdress. Yeah,
headpiece goes so crazy. I don't know what those are, like the little like eyes, like the little like LED eyes. But goddamn, that's sick. That is such cool design. I think that's so sick. But you can also see like in her design, it takes a lot off of like his dress and garb and things like that, which is very interesting. I'm
yeah,
trying to see if there's
yeah.
like any more parallels that can be drawn. You can kind of just see it in the design. It's not like a one-to-one for obvious reasons. It never will
Yeah,
be,
yeah.
but I think they did. I think you and I both agreed they did a very good job of representing the god in like an
Oh no,
anime
definitely,
fantasy sense,
definitely.
which makes her very interesting. But all
Yeah,
right, I'll let us
definitely.
get to the actual slide at hand. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
I
So
agree. That is
the
something they missed. Sorry,
mhm.
Yari. I just agree with Otan, where Otan says I think something they missed out on is where they could have made the tip of the whip or like the lash look like a snake's head. I think
Oh
I think I
yeah,
would agree with that. That would have made it look very cool. Yeah, I agree.
definitely, definitely. So the Mexica had a very polytheistic religion, right? They had so many fucking gods. If I wanted to talk about all of them, we'd be here forever. So I just talk about most of like the biggest ones or the most important ones, right? I'm gonna mention them briefly here, and in like some slides in the future, we'll be able to go a bit more in depth into a couple of them. So, for example, we have Tlaloc, which was the god of the rain, Huitzilopochtli, which was the god of war, sun, and sacrifice. Right, those were very important gods for the Mexica, and they had a lot of temples and shrines. Quetzalcoatl was also a very important god. He is thought to be the god of knowledge, wisdom, civilization, because it's thought that he came and taught the humans how to do fire, how to cultivate corn, how to make all these advances. He's also believed to be the god of science. So usually people that were into the sciences, like in this era, were like priests kind of thing, or sorcerers or whatever. They usually revere Quetzalcoatl, right?
Hmm.
Um, they believed that their universe was structured around multiple layers, with the earthly realm at the center, and the myths detailed a creation and destruction of successive worlds, each governed by a different god. So um, yeah, they had these cycles of creation and destruction, and by the time the Spanish came, they were on the fifth sun, which was the fifth cycle, basically, in their cosmology, right?
Right.
Um, yeah. Then specialized types of priesthood oversaw religious ceremonies and calendars and educations. And priests were really, really important for the Mexica. They held significant influence, guiding both political and spiritual matters. And human sacrifice was believed to be a central ritual to nourish the gods and ensure cosmic order. Victims were often war captives, and sacrifices were conducted during major ceremonies. But they also sacrifice other types of people, right, for different
Right.
purposes.
I was about to say, you
For
don't get
example,
something like a skull rack altar just sacrificing 5 people every year.
oh no, they sacrifice a ton of people. Like if you see that building to the left above the base,
Right. That's
that's
exactly
called
what I was referring to.
yeah, that's a some pantry, right? And you see those little lines. Well, each of those lines had skulls. You know?
Right. You can kind of see it in the little picture. Yeah. They
Yeah.
they 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 really made it detailed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And those cylindrical shapes on the sides, those were also made with skulls. Like
Oh,
literally layers upon layers of
how
skulls
quaint.
and plaster. Yeah, we actually found one of those next to the cathedral a few years back. It's very impressive and gruesome too.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. That's got to be some of the most cursed earth imaginable. You
Or
want to get
holy, I don't
haunted?
know.
You can go haunt. You can just show up to one of these. You want to see a ghost? If there is anywhere in the world where you're gonna see a fucking ghost, it is there. Like
Right.
just straight up, an old church on top of an old Native American skull burial ground. Like, yeah, that's definitely where you're gonna see them. Where people were sacrificed.
Right. Yeah, no,
Oh, give me one
they
moment,
have some.
Yari.
Gotcha.
Yo, welcome in, Raiders! Welcome in, everybody. My name's Hara Rae Sol. I'm an Egyptian peregrine sun goddess. I do War Thunder variety and history streams. And tonight we're doing our history stream. Our guest is Yari Kosan. And our topic today is the post-colonial or the pre-colonial Mesoamerica history of the Yucatan. So thank you so much for the raid, Muramasa. Hope you had a great raid. And welcome in, Raiders. Also wanted to say thank you. I think I missed a follow. If I did, I'm so sorry. But I hope you guys are enjoying the history night so far. But sorry, as you were saying, Yariko.
Oh no, you're good. Don't worry about the thing. Um, I was saying that they had some really fucking metal gods and goddesses. like,
They really did,
like for example, Huitzilopochtli. His
which
mom
is
was
this
the guy to the
person.
right. Yeah. His mom was a goddess called Coatlicue, which is the one in the center of the slide, the one that has like two snakes head. Um,
Which one
it's
is
to the
that? The
left.
statue at the bottom.
Yeah, the statue at the bottom. That's the mom.
Oh, holy shit! Those are two snake heads forming like a
Yeah,
face. Holy shit,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
crazy.
And she's fucking. That statue is fucking massive. I don't know if you. I think I sent you a picture when I saw it in the Anthropology History Museum a
Hmm.
couple of months ago. I think that statue is like 3 or 4 meters tall, so it's very
Holy
tall.
shit.
Yeah. And basically, she got pregnant of Huitzilopochtli when a feather touched her womb or some bullshit like that. And another goddess was like, "Oh no, I hate that guy. I don't want him to be born." And she was about to kill his mom, but then Huitzilopochtli was born in a full suit of armor and with weapons and killed the other goddess and her sons. before they could kill his
What?
mom. Yeah, yeah. Like, and he not only killed her, he dismembered her. Right? He cut off her limbs and her head, and that's the statue we have. Not the statue, but the thing we have to the right of that statue, the disc.
Oh yeah.
And that's another goddess that which she
Yeah,
supposedly killed.
I'm gonna say maybe don't fuck with the two-headed snake lady that has 6 arms, 2 of which are covering her bare tatas and has a literal skirt of snakes. I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
maybe don't fuck with that person. That's
Exactly.
crazy. That's
Yeah,
also
and
so crazy. Being born in armor is so sick.
yeah. And if you scroll up, you can see the actual size of that thing. You can see
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Holy shit, it is not tiny. So, where would this have been? Probably the center of a temple, most
Yeah,
likely.
it was actually in front of the I think it was the Sun Temple in Tenochtitlan.
That is so fucking
And
sick.
there is a theory that says that some of the human sacrifices that were about to be sacrificed, they would choose two and put them on top of that thing, and they would order them to fight each other. And the loser
Oh.
was going to be sacrificed, and it was going to be sacrificed in the same way that goddess died, by being dismembered.
Essentially being drawn and quartered. Good lord.
Pretty much.
That's crazy.
Yep.
So, could you explain what this picture is up in the top right corner? Because there's a lot going on. There's a bunch
Right.
of like
So
little animals, there's birds in each corner.
right. So that picture is
There's Homer
it's one of
Simpson at the bottom.
definitely. So it's about Xiuhtecuhtli, the Lord of Fire, and the calendar. Right. That's the guy in the center of the picture.
Right.
And the four sides, quote unquote, those are representatives of the four, like, the cardinal directions, like north, south,
Right.
east, west. And the other ones are also gods in each of the sides. Usually for the Mexica, most gods have like a duality. So we have, for example, we have Quetzalcoatl, and his dual was fuck, what's his name? Uh, his dual was Tezcatlipoca. Tezcatlipoca. So Quetzalcoatl was the creator god, and Tezcatlipoca was the destruction god.
What
And
quadrant is that? North, south, east, or west?
uh, for example, if I remember correctly, Quetzalcoatl was the god of the east,
Oh,
and
okay.
and Tezcatlipoca was from the west, I believe. I don't remember exactly. It's on another slide, so we'll cover that
I gotcha. I
when we
gotcha.
get there. Yeah. But yeah. I don't remember which of the gods are the ones depicted here. But that's pretty much like how they saw the cosmos, right? They had these dualities and stuff.
Right.
The god on the blue base to the left, that's Tlaloc.
Oh,
We
okay.
had he's the god of water, rain, lightning, and all that stuff. He has googly eyes and fangs for some reason. And everyone who died a death related to water, so it could be like you
Drowning.
drowned, you had too much water in your body or whatever, because there's like a sickness about that. I don't remember the name, but that, or if you got hit by a lightning, which was also part of his thing. Everyone who died like that would go directly to Tlaloc's heaven. Basically, he had like a paradise, which was different to Mictlan.
Right.
Um, yeah.
So
So
that was actually one of the major questions I had is like what afterlife looked like in this religion. So you're saying like what was there specifically like was there like a concept of like a hell? Like was there a bad place to go? Was that like did that exist?
oh, I mean, for the Mexica and most of the cultures here, it was a fucking struggle to go to heaven, quote unquote.
So it was a
Because
struggle to even go to like one of these gods' paradises, which depended on how you
uh, I,
died.
I think for if you died that specific death because the Mictlan was reserved for everyone who died of natural causes, right?
Right.
So that was like the normie heaven.
The
And
normie heaven.
yeah, normie heaven, you had to suffer to get there. All the other ones where you had like a more gruesome death, that was like you were instantly in paradise, basically. But let's see, let me find because I did answer that question here
But were they all like
somewhere.
conventional paradise? Like, is that the answer? Like, they were all
No,
conventional paradise?
no. Because for
Or was it
example,
like, is it just like you're here forever and it's not like hell, but it's not great either?
right? But let me explain how that works. Because for example, the Mexica had Mictlan, right?
Right.
Um, Mictlan, to get to Mictlan, you had to, let me see, you had to first traverse because there are like 9 hells before you get to Mictlan, right?
Right.
You have to traverse all of them, and the journey will take you 4 years. And like it's a very specific way, and obviously each one of these places is ruled by a god or a goddess, and to get there is let's see, let me just remember because I have this in my answers but I don't remember
You're
where
all
they
good.
are. Yeah.
If you're able to
Let's
find it
see.
also, I'm kind of curious
Yeah, I
to
found
like, you go
it.
through
Okay.
these 9 hells to like, okay, say you, okay, to like create a
Yeah, I
scenario.
found it.
You drown to
Mm-hmm.
death, which means you're supposed to
Right.
end up at Tlaloc's heaven, right? Or his
Yeah.
paradise.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
does that mean you die? You have to go through these 9 hells, and then you end up at Tlaloc's paradise? Is that how it goes? Which would be different than
No.
say like your neighbor who died in a house fire and had to like go through 9 hells to end up at a different god's paradise.
Right. Now, as far as I understand it, if you die, for example, a death that will take you to Tlaloc's heaven, you get there like instantly, right?
Okay, you
Uh,
just pop in. Okay.
right. If you died of natural causes, da, 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 you have to traverse the 9 hells to get there. And for
Okay.
example, the first hell it's Quintlan, and it's that means the place where the dogs are.
Oh,
And yeah. You would
that sounds
have to,
ominous.
yeah. Uh, it's a place where one of the gods called Xolotl, which is literally a dog. Um, uh, he rules over there, right?
Right.
Uh, to cross this hell, you have to get the help of a Xolotl dog. And let's see, the place was cold and stuff, and let's see, you have to like get inside a river to cross it.
Mm.
Um, then it says that you will like suffer a lot if you made people suffer in your life, and if you will get constant remorse from a very hard from hurting dogs in your past life. Because
Interesting.
this, yeah. Then after this one, it's one called Tepetl Monanmikjan. And this is a hell where there were two enormous mountains that were clashing together constantly.
Hmm.
And the seas would have to like cross like between them, right?
Right.
Yeah. And the whole deal was like if you get fucking squashed by the mountains, you lost. Yeah, you're fucked.
You're
You
just,
stay
it's like
there.
Frogger. You got hit by the car, you're done. Like,
Yeah, you stay there and you're fucked. Then the next one, it's called It's Tepetle, and that's it's called it means the Obsidian Mountain. And oh, this one is kind of metal because you have to traverse this mountain. You have to climb this mountain and while you climb it, all all the road is made of sharp obsidian shards, right?
Oh my god.
Yeah, and so you get caught constantly while you climb it, and you have to climb it, but you get caught constantly. And it's the realm of of a god called Itztlacolewiki, which is the god of obsidian and punishment. So yeah,
Wow.
you're gonna suffer while you're here. Um, then the next one, it's called Itzehekayan, which is place of the obsidian winds,
I'm
and
sorry, could you repeat
basically
that?
place
Place
of
of
the
a
obsidian winds. Obsidian winds.
what
The
is this?
winds
Like
of
obsidian
obsidian.
glass just like flies into your eyeballs?
It's more like, I mean, kinda. It's more like you have to walk to a place that's frozen solid, and it's always snowing in there, and shards of obsidian are flying towards you and
Oh my
literally cutting you
god.
apart, right, and removing your skin.
Oh my
Um,
god.
yeah, it's fucking metal,
What
man.
hell what number are we at? Is
That's
this like
4.
4?
Yeah, that's 4.
There's 5 more?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's one
Thank
called.
you. Thank you for the follow, Kildexar. Welcome to the cult. Sorry,
Hey,
continue.
Kel, what's up? Then
Oh
the
my
next one is
god.
called Banquetlacaloyan, a place that trembles like a flag. And this one is a very big desert where it's really hard to like walk around, with 8 places where there's no gravity, and the seas were at the will of the winds, basically. So you would have to like be lucky to get to the other side, because if the winds didn't want to get you there, you were fucked.
Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest. We're at circle 5, and at this point, I don't know why you wouldn't hit like the age of 70 and just drown yourself and go straight to Huitzilopochtli's like paradise, because this shit sucks, bro.
Yeah.
So what if I have to drown for like 30 seconds and live through that short hell? It's much better than getting hunted down by dogs, then squished between mountains, then stepping on obsidian glass for miles, then getting flayed alive by obsidian glass, and then whatever fresh hell this is. Like, Jesus Christ. And here I thought that, like, oh my God, I thought Egyptian afterlife was horrible. Egyptian afterlife is like, you done fucked up, banished. Like,
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. Then on the 6th one we have Temiminaloyan, which is place where the arrows pierce people.
Oh my God.
And this is a place where invisible hands will throw spears to people or to the deceased and try to like pierce them through, right? And the deceased would have to try to avoid them to not bleed out. Then the next one, it's called Tejojoqualoyan, which means place where the people's hearts get eaten.
Holy shit.
So in this place, you were fucked either way, because you were going to, like, at the end of the place, a big jaguar will find you, open your rib cage, and eat your heart. Like that's something that will happen.
Good God.
Yeah. Then the next one, it's called Apano
I'm trying to
Waloyan.
figure out how these could even get worse.
Right. This one is called place where you have to cross water, and it's basically the disease ends up on a river, and they have to cross the river, and it's a river filled with black water, right? Like it's really black water, and they would have to cross it, and then they would have to cross this really big valley filled with 9 rivers, And these rivers symbolize the 9 states of consciousness or whatever, something like that.
Right.
Right. And then they get to the last one, um, which is called Chiknawik, which means place of the 9 regions of the dead. And basically, the disease, after crossing all these challenges, they couldn't see anything around them anymore. And they were really tired, so they would fall to the ground, and then they would connect with everything that happened in their life and everything that surrounded them, and they would become one with everything. And then at that point in time, they would stop suffering and would enter Mictlan.
So you're telling me the whole idea is to like literally get the dog shit kicked out of you until you're so fucking worn down you finally just kind of get Thanos snapped and then you're in heaven?
Basically.
That is dog shit. That is fucking dog shit. That is not worth it at all. Ancient Mesoamerican culture. I am doing all of the evil things. It's already bad. It's already bad. Like, you're already screwed, man. You might as well give up.
Yeah, the 2 gods that were residing in Mictlan, because it's a pair, right? It's a guy and a girl. When you get there, they will tell you, okay, you have finished suffering. Go now and sleep your mortal sleep, and that's when you would have your eternal rest, basically.
So you didn't even go to heaven. You just you finally died.
I mean, it's kind of like that's their heaven, right? Resting in Mictlan, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if we were all wrong and the real religion is the Aztec religion? Bro, just take me out back. Just take me out back.
Bro,
drown me, please.
Let me drown.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna wake up in that first dog area and be like, where's the nearest bucket of water? Please. Someone give me a puddle.
Yeah, bro.
Oh my god. Thank you for the follow, Future Inamine. Welcome into the cult. That's unironically, that is literally just like that is actually just like I'll take the drowning, please. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Fuck old age, man. Oh my lord.
Yeah,
that'd be horrible.
Fuck that.
I don't even care if like even if Huitzilopochtli's like paradise is like you constantly feel like you're drowning for forever, that would still be better. That would still be better than that. Like, oh my lord. All right. So I think that was all my questions for this 9 circles of hell that were somehow worse than the last. All right, are we ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah, before I continue, I just found my fucking notes on your document.
I gotcha.
So there are other heavens. For example, we have the Tonatiuh Ichan, which is the house of the sun, and that's reserved for warriors who died in combat and women who died on their firstborn child, like even their firstborn
childbirth.
Yeah, gotcha. Childbirth. Or sacrifice warriors. Then
so there's a bonus. So it's like, all right, you're getting sacrificed, which sucks, but you skip the 9 hells, so that's pretty pog. Like,
oh, definitely. I mean, for these cultures, human sacrifice was seen as an honor, right? Some people even wanted to be sacrificed because that was really special.
I don't even care if it's an honor. It's literally just like, yes, let me skip the hells. Please.
Yeah. Then we have one called Sincalco, which is the corn house. And that's a place for people who committed suicide or died by
corn
strangling.
House.
Yeah, literally the corn house.
It's just you just get a lot of corn.
Yeah, and then we have Chichihualcoahuco, which is for children that had a premature death. And Yeah, I think that one of the best ones is the Tlaloc one. That one. It says
The
it's
one where
a
you just drown.
yeah, the drown one. Yeah, it's like a lush paradise filled with animals and small insects, and in this
That's
place,
fucked. Nah,
souls.
that's so unbalanced, bro. That's cheating. Tlaloc was like, hey, this shit fucking blows. Just, I don't know, drown in a bucket. Like, I'll give you the best paradise ever, dude.
Yeah,
You want heaven? I'll give you heaven. All it costs is one small drowning. Like,
yeah, exactly. Oh my god,
oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
lord.
That's pretty much that.
Literally, you have like the main, like, you have like the main, like, king of like one of the empires being like, here's a little religious trick that the peasants don't know about. Get the bucket. Like, give me the
Give
bucket.
me the bucket, bro.
I have pneumonia. Get me the bucket. Like,
Right.
I'm about to do
Oh
what's called
god.
a pro gamer move.
Oh,
All
definitely,
right.
definitely.
All
We can
right. We
go to
ready
the
to move
next
on to
one
the
if you
flower
want.
war?
Yeah, definitely.
I gotcha.
So the flower wars are the Nahuatl word for them was the Xochitl Xochitl. And these were ritualized conflicts practiced by the Mexica and neighboring city states in pre-Columbian Mesoamerica, right?
Hmm.
Um, these are unlike typical wars. These were um, aimed for more like a political dominance, where prearranged engagements and participating city states would convene at designated locations and times, known as Cuautlali or Yautlali, to conduct battles primarily for capturing prisoners. Like they didn't want to kill people during these battles, right? That was
Right.
not the idea. And these captives were taken and then sacrificed in religious ceremonies to honor the gods and to ensure cosmic balance. They served political and social functions, such as demonstrating military prowess, training warriors, reinforcing alliances, or rivalries among city states. And
Hmm.
we see them happen in the Mexica territories. We see also they happen in a different way, but kind of like different but the same in the Maya area. So these flower wars were something quote unquote common, right?
Right. Yeah. So this was like the main, yeah, definitely like the
Yeah,
main
that's
form
mm,
of war.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was
It's quite
pretty
literally
much
skirmishes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Pretty much, pretty much. And when the Spanish came here, obviously things changed, right? At the start, the Mexica were not trying to kill the Spanish because they
Right.
would that was not what they were trained for. But then it really quickly became a war for survival, and
Hmm.
yeah. Mhm.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. You have questions? Hit
I
me.
think this one was. Oh no, it wasn't added. Okay.
No, the one was
Um.
already. Yeah, yeah.
I guess
You
my
did put some questions.
yeah. I guess my question. I've already noted that we've noted the difference many times. The difference between European war compared to these.
Right.
Were prison swaps a thing? Would they swap captured prisoners for one another? I'm assuming not, considering that the whole idea was to sacrifice these people. That seems to be the societal point
Right.
of being a warrior, is to actually be sacrificed. But I'm curious if
Kind
that
of.
was common. I guess if they captured like a leader, I guess a swap would be in order.
I don't think they actually did prisoner swaps. I don't. I haven't heard of any prisoner swaps practices before because the whole idea was like everything you
Yeah, to
captured,
get
you would
sacrificed.
sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
And usually both sides would capture people, so you were like they were thinking with that mindset, right? Like doing this with that mindset. So I don't think they would prisoner swap.
Right.
And
How would,
probably the no. Hmm? No, no,
go
go,
ahead,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead. You're in the
Well,
middle of explaining, go ahead.
I was just gonna say like probably the nobility didn't really participate specifically in this prisoner, in these engagements, right? Probably
Right, but there
the
were
less
some
important
times where
people.
heads were captured because, like,
Right,
I
right,
think I remember being documented.
right. Yeah. So
So
it has happened.
I was going to ask, like, how was victory decided in these skirmishes? Like, how would they decide who won? Is it just who captured more people, or who ran away from the field, or what?
Um, that's a as far as I know, like they convened on okay, we're gonna capture so like this amount of people, right? And I assume like they just captured that amount of people and they were like, okay, the quote has been reached. It's done. Bye bye. We'll see you next year or whatever. you know.
I get that, but
Um.
like when like for example, like the Aztecs or the Mexica, for example, expand their
mm,
empire, they have to do so through military dominance. They did it through, hard warfare. Or the Chichimeca when they raid. How do they
right.
decide who loses and who wins to pay fealty to someone?
Right.
Would that be when they just stopped committing these flower wars? Would that be more of like an actual conventional type of war?
I think probably yeah.
Okay.
Because they did have a military and they did engage in like more typical kind of wars, but these flower wars happened when they already had like an agreement with a different city state, right?
Right, right. Okay.
Um, yeah. So this was more like a military exercise kind of thing.
Right. And something I'd like to note
Of
for
sorts.
chat. So these outfits that you see them wearing, these full-bodied outfits, this is an indication of a religion coming from an animal cult, which if you don't know, almost all religion in human society comes from animal cults. But this shows blatantly the the conversion from an animal cult to a typical religion, to a standardized religion, much like ancient Egypt was, with the depictions of gods and specific animals. Here, warriors, for example, dressed up in clothes of skins and pelts of like leopards, jaguars, creatures of the sort, to channel, not only to make themselves seem more fierce and intimidating, but also to channel the spirits of these creatures for when they fought. And
Mm,
that's why they wore these headdresses and these garb, the ceremonial garb and things like that. That was the importance
right.
of it. So it shows how close these ancient Mesoamerican societies were, and more modern ones as well. This practice did not disappear. Were very still orientated with the animal cult roots that formed the basis of a lot of of all world religions.
Yeah. Yeah, and for the Mexica, the clothing and the headdresses and the shields or their weapons they used, those denoted their military rank, right?
Right.
Um, so their military ranks were divided by how many captives they would take in a battle. So, for example, if you got one, you would get a certain rank. If you got two, you would get a certain rank. If you got three captives, you would get a certain rank, which was
Right.
one of the highest, right?
You got kill
Um,
streaks.
I mean, kinda, right?
Well, capture streaks, but
Capture streak, yeah. And then we have the eagle and jaguar warriors, where basically basically the jaguar warriors were the heavy shock troopers of the Mexican, and
right.
the eagle warriors were kind of like the special forces.
Interesting. So they have like actual designations based on the pelts
Yeah,
and costumes you wore. That's interesting. That's cool.
definitely, and different
So
kind
it's
of
like
training, different.
you're just like
Mm,
Bob fighting Tom from the town over, and you guys are just kind of fucking around, like half-assing at each other. And then you see some dude in like some eagle costume, and you're like, ah, fuck! Like,
yeah,
I'm gonna get the fuck out of here, dude.
yeah, pretty much. The jaguar warriors were usually only nobility, but if you capture certain amount, even if you were like fucking a peasant, and if you capture some warriors, you could become an eagle warrior, and
Oh,
you
okay.
could climb their ranks basically.
Right.
So a way to become a noble was to be a good warrior, basically.
So if you were a good enough warrior, you would become a noble. Would you stop fighting after that? Or would you still fight?
No, you would still fight. Yeah, like
Were I'm assuming that
mm,
capturing a noble was worth more than capturing a non-noble then?
probably.
I
Not
gotcha.
sure.
Because like if
But
you look at
yeah.
like for example, let's look at in comparison to like medieval Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're a knight, like an actual honest to god nobleman's son knight, which is how most knights were. They were the sons of noble houses. Um you would not be killed. You would be captured. You would give yourself up unless it was in a duel with another noble. You would give yourself up. You would be surrounded by peasants. You give yourself up, and then you'd be traded for large sums of money back to your home. You would never be killed.
Yeah.
That would never happen almost, unless it was accident or some peasant really got pissed off.
Right. Now over here they had to fight.
Right. So yeah, over here it was just like, no, you don't get special treatment. So yeah, it's very interesting to hear that like that was the thing.
Yeah. And like during the war with the Spanish, it is believed that approximately around 80% of the casualties on the Spanish side were caused by the Eagle and Jaguar warriors, which
Wow.
were the elite forces in the
Right.
Mexica army, right?
Which makes sense. They're the seasoned veterans.
Yeah, exactly. And they did have special training since age like 13 or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, because for the in the in Tenochtitlan and that area, there were specific schools. Like if you were a noble, you went to a school, and if you were a peasant, you would also go to a school, a different school, but you would also go to a school, right? And
Right.
after certain time, like I think 12 or 13, they would do like a physical test, and depending on how well you did, you would have a chance to join the Eagle Warrior. If you were a peasant, you would have a chance to join the Eagle Warrior school, and then they
Right.
would train you there up until like I think like 20 or something like that. And at that point, you were considered an Eagle Warrior, and you would go on these
Sick.
wars and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. If you didn't become an Eagle Warrior, you could still become part of the military, but you would have a different rank, right?
Right.
And Jaguar warriors were usually just like nobles. Like they would still go through training. They wouldn't become like instant Jaguar warriors, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of their training, they would be Jaguar warriors. That was like the distinction.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Are we ready for the next
Yeah.
slide?
We can. I was about to talk about like weapons and stuff because I didn't
Oh, okay.
put
My
a.
bad. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I remember you mentioned like you asked me about the atlatl, right? Which
Yes.
is
Which, if people don't
the
know, it's the Lotl is like it's like a it's like the compound bow of javelins. You
right.
essentially have a stick with a pit at the long end of the stick, and in that pit you put a spear going the opposite direction, and that
Yeah.
way when you throw it, it's a compound action and adds length to what you're throwing, thus for therefore giving it more leverage, thus more speed and power behind it with less effort. um
Yeah.
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 But
That
continue.
was one of the weapons that they use a lot, specifically against Spanish when they came, right? Um,
Right.
yeah. It was basically a very long dart or spear on this piece of wood, and they were I don't know. I've heard people say that they could go through armor. I don't think so,
They can't,
specifically to
no.
armor, but yeah,
At
these
least
are like
not
really
plate.
big
At
spears.
least not
Yeah, no,
plate
not
armor.
plate. Definitely not plate. But they could go like completely through a human, definitely easily.
Oh,
I
easily, yeah.
believe.
Through flash, yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah. Pretty easily. Then they had. What else? They had really interesting uh, bows and arrows that they were used. They used poison arrows too. That was very common. They had darts. They had what's the word of that in English? Slings, I think it's called. Yeah,
What do you mean?
sling. You know, sling, the weapon.
Oh, a sling.
Slings.
Okay, I
Yeah,
thought you
yeah,
said
slings.
slinks. I was like, what's a slinks?
No, no,
You mean like
no,
a
no,
slinky?
sling, sling.
Sling. Yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah, a sling. Yeah.
yeah, they had slings. They had the masawaddle, which was like a um basically like a mall with obsidian shards on the sides, right?
Right.
That was some spicy thing. They had another type of mall made called the kawitl. Um, they had spears called tepostopili. They had another type of mall called the Quahoil. And I think that you've probably seen that one in pictures before. It's the one that's like a little cylinder and then has like a big sphere at the top. Kind of looks like a
Right.
morning star without the spikes.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah, that one's pretty common from the era. Then they had another thing that was kind of like an axe. It's called the Tlaximeltepostli. Um, and what else? What else? They had obviously daggers made of obsidian. They did use what's it called? Copper? No, it's not copper. It's the other one. Bronze. They had bronze weapons, but
Okay.
they were not as used. Um, but bronze was worth when the Spanish came, so
Right.
it was a thing, right?
It's probably just more
Um,
because obsidian was more readily available and you don't have to like
definitely,
smelt
definitely,
obsidian. So,
yeah. And for armor, they did have shields, the Chimali. Uh, they had something that was akin to a gambeson. Um, it's called the Ichkawipil, Ichkawipili.
mhm.
Um, they had the Ehuatl, which is the tunic that the nobles wore on top of the gambeson.
So
It
kind
was
of like
kind of
their
like in Europe.
standard.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Kind
it's
of.
very like Europe. It had a gambeson and it had the kind of the standard over it that showed your house and your nobility and things like that. That's crazy.
Yeah, pretty much. And they on top of that, if they were like a noble or a prestigious warrior or whatever, they would have their really decorated and adorned outfits.
Hmm.
Um, like for example, if you saw someone with a really fancy headdress, that was usually a noble or a really strong warrior or something like that, right?
Right.
The commanders also had like specific standards on their backs, kind of like I don't know. You've seen the Japanese samurai, right? They had like these
Yes.
standards on their
Like the
backs, kind of like that.
flags.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Kind of like that. And they also had some wooden helmets that some people wore, and the helmets or the headdresses, all of them like signified ranks in the army, or like if they belong to a specific force, like for example the eagle warriors, the jaguar warriors, etc., etc., right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I do have a minor question on this slide, the center bottom. It
Right.
looks like he has a stone wheel tied to his leg.
Yeah,
Is
remember
that
when
what
I
that
told
is?
you? Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that, yeah, I mean, I think the representation is a bit off because that stone wheel is way bigger, right? You can
Right.
fit two people on top of the stone wheel and fight. They would fight like in a gladiatorial fight.
Right, but he
But
seems
the
like
guy,
tied to
oh
it.
yeah, yeah, the guy that's tied up, that's probably like that picture is to represent the birth of Huitzilopochtli, which was the god that dismembered his sister, right?
Right.
So this fight is is to represent. This is like a human sacrifice fight, and it's to
Oh,
represent
okay.
that bird. So
So
that bird
essentially, they
that's
took
tied
a
up.
human. So essentially, they
Yeah,
took a human sacrifice, a guy who was supposed to be the human sacrifice, tied him to a
yeah,
stone wall, and then said,
yeah.
"Fight our jaguar warrior and get cut to
Basically,
pieces." Yeah. Okay.
basically, and
I
literally
gotcha.
cut to pieces and thrown on the side of the pyramid, right? Because that was like
Right.
the thing. Hmm.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay. Are we ready for the
pretty
next
fun.
slide?
Definitely.
All right. Why we don't call them Aztecs?
Yeah. Okay. So the term Aztec is a misnomer, right? It was popularized in 1843 by historian William Prescott, and it refers to all the peoples who migrated from Aztlan. The Mexicas never referred to themselves as Aztecs. Instead, they identified themselves as Mexicas. The word Aztec comes from Nahuatl and means people from Aztlan, but the Mexicas call themselves Mexicas, right?
Mhm.
The word Mexica comes from the Nahuatl word Mexictli, which refers to a Mexica great leader or a war priest, which was thought to be the first leader of the Mexica.
Right.
And the name Mexico comes from the Nahuatl Metztli, which means moon, and Sikli, belly button or center, and Ko, place. So the
So
name is thought to
essentially, City
mean,
of the Moon Center. Yeah.
uh,
Oh, sorry. It's right after that. Sorry.
yeah, it's there. In city in the center of the lake of the moon, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think my big questions for this one, and we're gonna go back and forth from like very academic and your personal takes to
Right.
kind of like just general questions. But I guess the first one is more of an academic one. So it would seem that William Prescott was an American. He was an American historian. He was actually well beloved by historians because he was one of the first people to actually study Mesoamerican culture and fight to preserve it. But obviously, I think his time period was like 50s or 60s, and there's always going to be mistakes when that happens.
Right.
Um, but my question would be: is how do you think Latino educators and academics could reclaim or change this naming discrepancy over time? And does modern Mexican culture find it to be insulting to refer to Mexicas as Aztecs?
Well, for context, over here in Mexico, we don't call them Aztecs, right? Like
So like, it's not even like a thing because like you don't
it's
even have to
not.
worry about it because nobody even calls them that. I got you.
Yeah, it's like over here when you get taught history at school, they call them Mexicas. Like in
Okay.
every book, it's Mexicas.
So, kind of like
On the
referring to
common,
modern events, it's like the United States referring to it as the Gulf of America when everyone else calls it Gulf of Mexico. Gotcha.
basically, basically, and obviously in the common vernacular, we have been exposed to the word Aztecs for generations by now, right? So
Right.
some people do call them Aztecs just for the sake of simplicity, so people outside of Mexico would understand.
Right.
But in Mexico, specifically in the academic side of things, I do not know any archaeologist of renown that dares to say the word Aztec.
Right. That still refers to it as Aztec. I got you. So it's more pop
Yeah,
culture at this point than it is
pretty
actually
much.
academic. Okay.
Yeah. Like at least here in Mexico, right? In the U.S., obviously, or elsewhere, they're probably gonna quote Prescott because he's the one that speaks English, right?
Right.
Um, and I don't know, man, but it's like me going to somewhere else and being like, oh yeah, or one 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 way of explaining this, or a common thing I've heard before, is like calling ancient Greeks Atlanteans or some bullshit like that, right? Which makes
Right.
absolutely no sense.
Right.
Because no, but yeah. Um, so yeah, I don't know anyone that finds it insulting, but I'm pretty sure there's people that do take offense. Because that
Right.
people like that exist, right? That, whatever. To me, I don't mind when people call them Aztecs, but I have to tell them like it's Mexica.
Right. But yeah, also my
Yeah.
mistake. Prescott was actually 19th century, so that makes
Yeah,
even
yeah,
more
yeah.
sense as to why he would make mistakes like that. But
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
it's
definitely.
understandable.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
also focused primarily on military and political affairs, so he definitely subscribed to the camp of history as a retelling of special men and events rather than like broad concepts and geographical means, which is very popular during the 19th century. Nothing wrong with it. It's just one way to look at history.
Right.
But moving on to my next question. So, why does the
Mm-hmm.
word Mexico, especially as a place, put so much importance on the moon when, as we've seen, the sun or rain god was always heralded as the most important? What significance was the moon to Mexican religion, and what role did it play to this city and religion?
Right. So if you go back a couple of slides, I think to slide, where is it?
Is it the religion
Uh, s-
slide?
the one in Tenochtitlan, and then the next
Found
one
it.
in the
Yeah,
religion. But the
yeah,
one
yeah,
in
found it.
Tenochtitlan, you see that double pyramid in the center of the picture to the right, right? Yeah, behind
Yes.
you. So
I'll zoom
those
in
two
for chat.
temples, yeah, those two temples are the sun and the moon temple,
Right.
right? Um, and during the creation myth, Huitzilopochtli, the goddess that he dismembered, that's the goddess of the moon. And
Mm.
he also killed 400 other gods that symbolize the stars, right? Um,
Holy shit!
yeah.
This is the god of rain?
No. Huitzilopochtli is the god of war.
Oh, the god of war. Okay, okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Actually pulling a Kratos. Holy shit.
Actually pulling a Kratos. Um, and the idea, like for them, yeah, the sun is very important, right? Like
Right.
one would say the most important. But the moon also played a major role in the cosmology of the Mexica. I'm not really sure exactly why, when Mexico was founded, they decided to call it Mexico. Um,
Well, I
the
understand because it's named after the Mexica, but I'm
yeah,
curious
yeah,
as to
yeah.
why the Mexica would refer to themselves as something having to do with the moon rather than having to do with the sun.
Right.
Because
But I
Mexica is
mean,
going to have the same naming scheme and have reference to
right.
the moon in it,
Actually, there
if
is
I'm
like
not
a
mistaken.
slight difference because, for example, the Mexica comes from Mexictli, which referred to a warlord name, right?
Oh, but like,
Yeah.
so
Which is the
it's
guy
not the
with the
same
little
as
deer head. It's not.
Metzitli?
Yeah, it's not the same. It's different.
Interesting. So
Yeah,
it's like a
similar but
phonetic
different.
base fake out, like a lot of things that happen with
Yeah.
like Greek words.
Kind
Gotcha.
of.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay.
Yeah, and then I put there a little picture of Quetzalcoatl in
Oh yeah,
native
diving off the
and
top
fake.
fucking rope with her luchador scary ass grin.
Yeah, I love that. So cute.
That's very
Yeah, and the one
interesting
on the
though.
side,
I
it's
wonder why
also
that is.
Quetzalcoatl. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
wonder why they
don't.
went with moon. That's very interesting.
Yeah, honestly, I have no idea. But I like the common explanation people say is like, oh, it's what this means because the moon is important. And it's like,
Right, because like
okay, I
Zico
mean,
makes sense,
yeah,
but the ME doesn't.
yeah. Yeah, and like I think the when they decided to name the country Mexico, they were like, okay, so Tenochtitlan was in the center of the lake, and I think they just like tried to like come up with an
Right.
explanation
Well, it also just
to
makes
put the
sense
other
because
part
like
right.
right, because like center place also just makes sense because it's like it's your capital is also Mexico City, so center
Yeah,
place city makes sense.
yeah,
It had the infrastructure. It was the cultural center, most recent cultural center. It makes sense for that. It's just
yeah.
moon. Like I don't know what the word for sun is, but you think it would be the word or a phoneticism from the word
Oh,
sun
the
and
word for
then
sun is
Zico.
Tonatiuh.
So
Tonatiuh.
yeah, you think it would be like I don't know, Tonazico or I don't know. I don't know how you'd fit that
Right.
in, but you get my point.
Yeah,
I
no,
feel
I
like
get
it's
your
a
point.
syllable we'd taken from that word instead. So it'd be like
Yeah,
uh in the center of the lake of the sun, for example.
right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, unsure,
All right.
unsure on that one.
Yeah, very, very unsure on that one. Do you know how many slides we have left?
Ooh,
Let
so
me check.
many, dude. So many.
Okay, did you
You have
add
no
that many?
idea.
Oh, you did add that many. Holy shit, Yari.
Don't
Okay.
worry about it.
Holy
We can.
shit.
The next one is really fast, so we can do it
Okay,
in.
so we'll do the next one and then we'll stop here and we'll finish this out next week, hopefully. All right.
Hell yeah. If I don't
All
have
right.
more, obviously, we'll see. We'll find out.
If you add more, I will come to your house. I swear to God.
Hey yo,
I will make you
guys, I
cook for
have to
me.
add more now. I've bet easy.
Oh my God, this isn't working. It's backfiring.
So this one is a very simple one, right? Moctezuma had a son and a daughter when the Spanish came in, and a lot of people assume that the Mexican nobility disappeared when the Spanish came to Mexico and conquered, but that's not how
Right.
the Spanish operated. The way they used to do things was they allied themselves with some natives to overthrow the strong natives, and then when they had the control, they would give part of the control back to the natives, right? That meant
Right.
giving the nobility that existed before some extra, like some power back. And in this case, so Moctezuma's daughter, Xipahuatzin, she was taken to Spain and then baptized as Maria, and then she was married to a nobleman, which was a baron in Catalonia.
Right.
And their descendants were intermingled with the Spanish nobility, right? And they still exist to this day. And there's also some people that are of Moctezuma's heritage here in Mexico, because I mean it's been so long ago that that family has grown disproportionately, right?
Right.
Um, so the current person that holds the title of the quote unquote prince, imperial prince, is a guy called Jose y Moscardo Bercher de Puenterenas y Borinquen, right? That guy lives in Spain. But that's the uh, His Royal and Imperial Highness. That's his title. Um,
Right.
yeah, and still exists. The guy still exists. When there there was a time um, after the independence from Spain, a guy called Iturbide, which was one of the generals that helped during the independence, he was a criollo, so that means he was a Spanish that was born here. And he tried to start an empire, and that
Right.
failed. He got overthrown because people um, didn't want to be in a non-democracy government, right? They were sick of it,
Right.
and he got thrown out. And then the next time an empire tried to happen in Mexico was when the French invaded, and they tried to impose a Habsburg Maximilian guy, which was funny because the guy was a liberal, right? So
Right.
yeah, but that's a story for another time. What can I say about their descendants? So they intermingled with the Spanish nobility. They still exist, and the Mexican government used to pay these descendants of Moctezuma a life pension, which means they would pay them in gold for life
Even though
every
they didn't live
year.
in Mexico.
Yeah, they did not live in Mexico. I think they didn't want to live in Mexico, right? Because politically it would have been problematic. um, and because obviously in Mexico you had a very complicated brewing pot of Republican wanting people, and also you had the conservatives wanting to have like another kingdom kind of thing, empire style government, right?
Right.
So having the Moctezuma's imperial hair in Mexico would be weird because those conservatives also didn't want an Indian, quote unquote, to be the ruler. You know what I mean?
Right.
They were like, oh no, we want to have an European be the ruler. But anyway, the Mexican government, out of the fucking niceness of their heart, paid a life pension to these descendants of 1 kilogram, 480 grams of gold a year, up to 1934. That's
Wow.
today's equivalent to $128,000 a year just for existing.
Yeah.
So whenever you hear that fucking royals have it easy, they fucking do. Fuck them.
That's still less. That's about half of what a U.S. congressman makes per year for life, by the way.
Yeah, but it's kind of the same bullshit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. U.S. congressman, by the way, if you don't know, makes $200,000 per year for life. Even when they stop being a
Right.
congressman, they make $200,000 a year. Same thing for a president.
Bro,
So,
the dream.
yeah.
Anyway, and those people on the right, those are actually a descendant from Moctezuma and a descendant from Cortez. Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, the guy on the left is I don't remember his name, but his last name is Acosta, and the guy on the right is called Pignatelli. I think he's Italian now or something like that.
He's Italian now. He chose to be. He
Yeah,
changed
I
about
mean,
10 years ago. I'm just kidding.
I mean,
He
you
was
know what
like,
I mean.
yeah, I know what you mean. It's just like, oh yeah, I was the son of a Native American. All right, I'm Italian now. I like pizza.
Yeah, bibbidi babbidi.
Or I mean, I was a descendant of Cortez. Rather, I'm Italian now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. So are
Those
we ready?
those those family thingies are obviously the nobility shields or whatever. The fuck, what's the word for
Right,
those
right.
in English? You know what I mean.
Descendant.
Yeah. No, no, no. The coat of arms. That's the word I was looking
Oh,
for.
coat of arms. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
That's
So are
it.
you ready for my questions for this slide?
Fuck yeah, dude. Bring
Okay.
it.
So I would like to make a quick note for chat. Going back to the second point where Montezuma's the second's daughter, Zipa Watson. Did I say that right? I probably didn't. I probably butchered that.
Sipa Watson. I mean, you said it very close. That was
Okay. Being baptized as Maria, moved to Europe and married a Spanish nobleman. No matter what their intentions were, that is definitely, and regardless of how people see it today, is technically a form of ethnic cleansing. In the sense of, you have to think of it in the sense of, what?
Oh, I think if I remember correctly, Moctezuma actually asked Cortez to take care of his children.
I get that, but like,
Yeah.
even then, it's still technically a form of ethnic
Oh,
cleansing. You look at
definitely,
it this way, and the way I'm about to
definitely.
explain. And the way
Oh,
that
no,
I mean that
definitely.
is that you're taking the leader, like the blood, like what would be the blood leader of an indigenous peoples, and you are taking them to away from their land peoples. You're
Yeah.
giving them a name that is Spanish. You're baptizing them in a Christian faith that they don't believe in, and then you're permanently residing them in Spain. Technically, not as a prisoner, but it's very heavily implied that they are a prisoner, and that's probably why they didn't leave.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Um.
definitely.
So yeah, that is a very obvious attempt, regardless of Montezuma or Maria's wishes, are technically a form of eliminating her cultural identity.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
basically,
yeah,
they just eliminated their political power by just removing them from the picture, right?
exactly. Essentially saying, "Yo, you're just a baron's wife now. You're no longer the head of the
Yeah,
Mexicans."
yeah, yeah. Yeah, because I mean,
Mexica.
the Mexica were very, they were very, very proud people, right?
Right.
So if they had someone to banner to, that would have been problematic for Spain.
Right.
Definitely.
It's also very funny because I don't know if you realize this, but the year that Mexico stopped doing its life pensions in 1934 would be a similar. It was lines up as a period where nations in Europe and as well as North America, Canada as well, for example, began shedding their imperial identities for national identities. So that makes a lot of
Right.
sense as to that explains the time period of why it was likely done in the 1930s was because nationalism was very on the rise. Nationalism had a very different connotation then than it does now.
Right.
But nationalism is forming into a Mexican nation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense that they would shed off paying a life pension to someone that was not only imperial in Spain but also imperial in indigenous Mexico, um,
Mm.
which is very funny to
Yeah.
think about. It lines up with the rest of the world on that. So that's a fun
Right.
note.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I guess my last question would be like, did this intermingling of, I guess, Maria being baptized and essentially being turned into Spanish royalty, did that cause a closer bond between the indigenous and ethnically Spanish peoples, or did that cause just a further divide?
I mean, I think the divide was really clear. I don't think this had any kind of effect because like she was not even in Mexico, right, when it all happened.
Right.
Like they took her away and
Oh, I didn't mean the
no
life
one.
pension. I mean her being baptized and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, I get that, but do you think people in Mexico would know what happened to her? Probably not.
That's fair. No, you're very
Yeah,
that's very fair. Yeah, it's not
like
like those peoples would ever hear back about it anyway.
yeah, like it's they couldn't call her on the telephone and be like, hey, how are you
Exactly. Yeah,
doing?
it's not like she's sending mail back on a pigeon across the
Yeah,
Atlantic.
and,
Like,
and
help
even
me.
if she
Yeah.
tried, I don't think the Spanish would have allowed any kind of mail to
No.
go
Yeah.
back to
Definitely not.
Mexico.
Definitely not.
So, like that side of history in Mexico, it's only known by academics. Most people don't really know or care about the
It's
Moctezuma's
too far removed from
life.
the
Yeah,
national consciousness at this point. Yeah.
it's super removed, super removed. And I will go back a bit to the what happened in 1934.
Right.
Back then, we had a president called Lázaro Cárdenas, which was a very influential president that came after the Mexican Revolution. He was actually one of the generals during the revolution,
Hmm.
and he had this what's the word um this banner, I guess, and he said Mexico for the Mexicans. So during that year, a lot of his movements or political things that he did was like, for example, he stopped paying this pension, right? He
Right.
nationalized the oil industry too, because Mexico had a lot of concessions given to American companies, also to the British, the Dutch, I think. And when this guy came to power, he nationalized all the oil industry. This
Right.
guy was like very influential back then, very, very important guy.
But yeah,
Um,
Mexico for the Mexicans is a tagline that you wouldn't exactly see in Europe, but makes so much sense compared to Europe at that time, which Europe
right,
would have probably been about 10, 15 years earlier in terms of
right.
cementing national identities. But this interwar period in the 1930s is where it would be the foundations would finally come to fruition.
Oh,
For
definitely.
example, in like
And
France, Germany, stuff like that, shedding off their
yeah,
Habsburg empires, um,
mm,
and stuff like that. So yeah, that makes a lot of
definitely,
sense.
definitely. And this is just like a decade later or after the Mexican Revolution happened, right? Which was
Right.
also a major conflict in Mexico. So yeah, yeah, very, very lots of political movement around that era of time. Mhm.
All right. So I think we're done with slides and my questions. So we'll go to a short portion where we ask, see if Chad has any questions for myself or Yariko. So feel free to throw them in chat. We'll try to get to as many as we can.
Yeah,
But we are running a little short on time.
I'm so
So does
sorry.
anybody have any questions they'd like to ask Yariko or myself?
What's up, Sunav?
I've always wondered
Holy
how
shit.
economics worked throughout pre-Columbian Mesoamerica. With Western Europe, we usually describe it as going from the Roman latifundium slave economy to the feudal serf economy and then onto early workshop capitalism as the Industrial Revolution crept in. My question is, and I'm not making an unreasonably complex question, was economics and production at that time comparable to anything that happened in the rest of the world? So, Stunov, I would actually like to add to your assessment of Western European economic progression, I guess evolution. You actually forgot one important part that's in between feudal serf economy and early workshop capitalism, which would be mercantilism, which was a very big form of proto-capitalism that was very popular as nations moved out of the feudal age and into the imperial age. When you had things like artisans, instead of it was your pre-industrial age where instead of
Yeah.
having your factories, you had your artisans and your trade guilds and artisan guilds and such as. Oh,
Right. Right.
we'll get to your question in a moment. Yo, welcome in, Raiders! Welcome in, everybody. My name's Hara Rae Sol. I'm an Egyptian Peregrine sun goddess who do War Thunder variety and history streams, and today is our history stream. We are with Yariko-san doing a study on the history of the Yucatan, as well as Mesoamerica in the pre-colonial era, as well as the post-colonial era. So thank you so much for the raid vibes. Hope you had a great stream. What were you up to? Hope you had fun, and thank you so much for the raid. Now to answer Sunom's question, to repeat it, my question
Right.
is, was economics and production at the time comparable to anything that happened in the rest of the world? Stunov, if
I
you
would
don't
say.
mind, well, if you don't
Mm,
mind, I don't know if it's clear for you. Would you mind, Stunov, clarifying, which time you mean? Because if we're looking at the
yeah.
1930s, for example, which we're talking about in this slide, it would be very comparable.
Yeah.
Are you asking more as in the Aztec era? Like, are you asking essentially do they have a similar feudal serf economy? Is that what you're asking? Or are you
Uh,
I think that's what they mean. Okay,
yeah. I
yes,
think that's what they mean.
pre-Columbian. Okay.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. So I would say they were around an era of mercantilism, right? Because trade was really important for them. The Mexica basically told everyone around them, "Hey, you can come here do trade in Tenochtitlan," and they had actually a special kind of like a trade police, right? And
Right.
if you believe that someone was using like fake weights to trade, like to measure things. The
Right.
trade police would go there and check the weights, and if they were not up to code, they would decapitate the guy that was cheating. So,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, they were very very strict with the. This is a place where you can trade, and I mean you can obviously see that
Now,
for the volume of population, trade was important, right?
I do want to
And
clarify real quick. A
mm,
barter and trade economy is different from mercantilism.
oh no, 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 yeah, yeah, and I get you, but I'm getting to there, right? I'm
I
getting
gotcha.
there. Um, I'm just saying that there's barter and trade definitely, but there's also like they manufacture goods, right? They have artisans in the city because it's a very big city. They get raw materials because we have these codices, right?
Hmm.
And they have notarized the materials that they get as tribute in Tenochtitlan, and that they're gonna get used, like they're gonna use this kind of wood to make these kind of things, blah blah blah, right? So
Right.
they do have, or I mean, if you don't want to call it mercantilism, I would say it's like a proto mercantilism, kind of like they were getting there,
Right.
in my opinion.
And it definitely
Mhm.
seems that way, but I would say that and I guess I failed to explain this. That's my mistake.
Right,
But the main defining characteristic of mercantilism is having things like artisan guilds, specifically like
right,
guilds, to where you would go
right,
to a
right, right.
guild and you would pay the guild and they would provide you an artisan that would all work together to
I'm pretty sure
create
they did
what you
have
were looking
something
for.
like that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did have something like that because they
Oh,
had like
sorry, one
specialized.
moment.
No worries.
Yo, welcome in, Raiders! Welcome in, everybody. My name's Hara Rae Sol, an Egyptian peregrine sun goddess. I do War Thunder variety and history streams. And today we have a guest, Yariko-san, and she is teaching us about the history of the Yucatan Peninsula, Mexico, as well as Mesoamerica and the pre-colonial age. Sorry, as you were saying.
No, no worries. You're good. I'm pretty sure they did have sort of guilds and like specific artisan schools. Because you know, basically the citizens either became soldiers or they became tradesmiths, I guess. In like
Right.
I don't know, like they made clothes or they made furniture. I don't know, man. You know, all those different trades that existed back then. They did have specific schools to teach those trades, right? And which are kind of like akin to guilds, I assume. But yeah,
I gotcha.
I don't know if that answers the questions or not. But yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for the raid, Maple. I hope you had a great stream, hon. Thank you for the raid again. That's very sweet of you. Okay. So do we have any more questions from chat? We are accepting questions. I see it's about Mexico. What's the basic of the topic? Oh, yeah, McDaniel, it's just about pre-colonial Mesoamerica. So like the Mexicans, Mayans, Chichen Itza, stuff like that. Okay, Sunam said that you did correctly or sufficiently answer his question, Yariko. I have a question for her. Actually, seeing as says my grandmother was full-blooded Cherokee, did the Mexica Inca trade with the northern natives?
Well, I mean, I can't say for the Inca because they live in Peru, right?
Yeah, the Inca were a little too far south. I'll also say, McDaniel, Aztec is actually referred to as the Mexica. We actually just got done explaining that. I know you missed it, but I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, but the Mexica, I mean, they traded with whoever they wanted to trade with, but I don't think they actually went as far north, because that would imply going through Arido America, which was filled with Chichimecas, right? Which
The
were very
Chichimeca,
hostile.
yes.
Yeah.
The very nomadic peoples. You were more raiders than trader
yeah.
peoples.
Yeah.
So it's actually very unlikely, I would think.
Yeah, very unlikely.
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting to think about that, like how similar the Chichimeca were to the Plains Indians, but
yeah,
it probably
horses.
yeah, essentially they definitely interacted. That's not incorrect, but trade would probably be non-existent because the Chichimeca did not really trade.
Yeah.
And I don't think people like Plains Indians, for example, while they did trade, I don't think that the Plains Indians that did were either too late to really interact with the Chichimeca or were too far north to interact with them.
Yeah,
because that would have been
too
Great
far
Plains.
north. Too far north, and also at the same time, the Plains people didn't have horses, so
exactly that too.
Like that identity that you guys see of the Native Americans of horse people that didn't exist, right?
Right.
Up until like a couple centuries after the Mexica disappeared because the Spanish already conquered, and they introduced the horses in America. So,
and that's also to say the most native peoples of the American Great Plains weren't nomadic in the originally either. They lived like they were like Mississippian river cultures that were pushed westward by American expansion. And then when pushed westward, they were forced to change their lifestyle to become nomadic to live off of the buffalo herds. That is like their culture changed to that. And that's how they became essentially a religion of horseback, of the horse, and of the bison, because it saved them temporarily, sadly, from extinction as a peoples.
Yeah, exactly. Next.
Go ahead and ask her the question, Snuff. It's all good, McDaniel.
Yeah. Yeah, feel free to ask it. I don't mind.
Also, yeah, I think the Long March is like Mao Zedong, yeah. That's usually how it went, McDaniel. I don't think you're incorrect. I think the Cherokee were indeed. I think it was like Florida Gulf area, if I'm not mistaken. My other question
Yeah.
I've always had is to what extent did Tenochtitlan, Tlacopan, and Texcoco remain autonomous cities in an alliance as their collaborative empire grew? Most of the time, we only hear of Tenochtitlan and not the other cities. So is it fair to say that at some point Tenochtitlan just completely took political protagonism and got rid of the two other rulers?
As far as I know, that didn't actually happen. They did have Tlatoanis, right? Because we
Right.
do have records of at least the Texcoco Tlatoani Nezahualcóyotl, which was a very famous poet, and he had a dynasty going on, right? Like he had other Tlatoanis that were his sons, daughters, or whatever. Um, and in Tlacopan there was also a Tlatoani. So while Tenochtitlan might have been like the crown jewel of the alliance because it was the bigger city, the other cities still remained and had their own political ruling classes, right? Um,
Right, because we talked about how losing Tlacopan to the Spanish was actually such a death blow to
yeah.
Tenochtitlan, and how likely that would have been extremely bad strategically
Oh,
and
definitely.
economically to Tenochtitlan. So yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely seems like it was a balance of powers for that alliance.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Do we have any other questions? Anyone from chat? Anybody else got some questions? We will be back.
Yeah.
I hopefully next Wednesday. It depends on if I have the availability. But we will be back next Wednesday to hopefully finish out Yariko's ever expanding presentation.
Oh, whoopsie.
From which city was Montezuma? I would imagine Tenochtitlan.
Moctezuma was from Tenochtitlan. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Montezuma was the leader specifically of Tenochtitlan. For example, like Tlacopan and Texcoco had had their own rulers. So
Yeah. So, for example, we for Tenochtitlan we have Moctezuma, and after him we have Cuitlahuac, which was basically the one that fought against the Spanish, but he fell in battle. And after him we have Cuauhtemoc, which also fought against the Spanish, and then he was eventually defeated by the Spanish and forced to capitulate by the Spanish.
right.
Hmm.
When is Yariko
Yeah.
coming back? That would be hopefully next week. Hopefully next
Yeah.
Wednesday. So I only recently started learning about Cortez and his almost death in the New World, but it sounded like they're about to collapse before he got there. Was there a civil war about to erupt, or I'm being ignorant? So, from what I understand, McDaniel, there was likely a civil war that was about to happen. It was only exacerbated by disease, not really so much Cortez, but disease brought about by uh, European. I was gonna say adventurers, but that's not right. Explorers is the better word.
Right.
And I wouldn't say a civil war, but there probably would have definitely been some kind of leadership change. Um,
Yeah.
Tenochtitlan, the alliance of the three city states probably would have lasted a while longer, just because like if Tenochtitlan falls, there's still two other states to hold it up.
Right.
But it would have been the same as we saw here, where it's like they just kind of quietly dissipate. They don't really violently burn to death. It's just a
Right.
quiet dissipation is where everyone kind of spreads out or moves or finds new city states to join, rather than it being this massive collapse. So Civil War
Yeah.
is probably a little too dramatic to say it. It probably should have been like small uprisings here and there that wouldn't have even
Yeah.
been brutal. Which would have just cemented a political change and then eventually a imperial change off of that political change.
Definitely. The way I see it, and I think a bunch of historians in Mexico see it this way too, is like if the Spanish never intervened, probably there was going to be some sort, because the Tenochtitlan was always fighting with Tlaxcala, right? Tlaxcala was like a rival city state, which was under control and was a vassal state of Tenochtitlan, but they did not like it, and they were always
Right.
trying to like fight for quote unquote independence, and they were always trying to get people to band with them to fight against Tenochtitlan. So eventually, probably I don't know, just you would probably have fights with them, but some other areas of the country they were kind of complacent, I guess, in the status quo.
Right.
It's hard to say what would have happened, right? Um, but
Yeah, that's
yeah,
kind of one of those alternate reality things where it's like, honestly, like there's so many variables that could have changed. Who knows?
yeah, it's complicated because also you have to take into account that when the Spanish came here, they brought smallpox, and that decimated the
Right.
population really,
Because
really, really hard.
I think that it was estimated, I think the number you gave was about 215,000 people at Tenochtitlan at the time of Cortez's arrival. And
Yeah,
that's to add on that they'd been going through a famine and they'd been going through a massive plague that had been wiping out hundreds of thousands of people across
yeah,
Mexico and Mesoamerica. So we're looking at a city that probably could have been at its height 500,000 strong, even.
yeah,
It could have
yeah,
been
probably.
monumentous, quite literally.
Yeah,
Because I think I even remember that if I'm not mistaken, Cortez also, even in his writings, talks about like how parts of the city seem like not exactly abandoned, but like run down, like they're not kept up like they used to be,
right. Yeah,
or
and
that
also
it's like
the
shows signs
conquest
of having
war.
shrunk.
Yeah, and the conquest war took like 5 years, so it wasn't like an
Right.
immediate thing, right?
Yeah, it wasn't an immediate thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Um,
right.
did
So
any
I think
Mesoamerican culture have hot air balloons? No.
what kind of dumb question is that? Are you serious? I ought to ban you just for that question being that stupid.
Oh my
What
god.
the fuck do you mean, dude? All right. So we're gonna rate out. I want to thank Yariko for being my guest again this week. I
My
can't wait to
pleasure.
have you again next week and hopefully finish it out. But as I look for someone to raid, would you like to shout your stuff out?
Oh, well, tomorrow I have a D&D stream. This is a one shot we are playing with my DM Mario Sack, which is probably in chat, and a couple other friends. And on Friday we're gonna play what's it called, Tarkov with Nude Automata. And on Saturday I have another collab, D&D collab. So that's gonna be fun. It's gonna be like a
Nice.
Valentine's theme D&D game. Yeah.
Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited.
Thank you.
All right. Well, make sure you guys go check her out. It's Yariko_Sun. Go check out her cool streams. If you like me for War Thunder, you'll like her for War Thunder as well. She's still on that grind, but you know what? At least you get to
Yes.
watch her grind it out, you know? At least it's not like
Oh
me where
yeah.
I'm already got everything. Yariko's like, you actually get to watch Yariko do stuff. So
Yeah,
make sure you
I
go
need the
check her
suffering,
out.
bro.
Let me give you a shout out real quick.
No, that's cringe. Don't do that.
No, I'm definitely gonna be cringe. I don't care.
Fuck.
I'm a
Ow.
VTuber. I'm already as cringe as I can be. So yeah, make sure you guys go check Yoriko out. She deserves your help. She deserves your attention. She's very fun, and sometimes I sneak in on there. So you might catch more of me if you follow her and watch her streams.
Mm-hmm.
So I will be personally back on Friday night. To lay out my schedule for this week. I will be back at 8 p.m. CST on Friday. We'll be playing War Thunder. Saturday, I can't remember if it's 7 or 8 p.m. CST. We'll be doing Buckshot Roulette as a collab. We'll be doing the multiplayer. And
Mm-hmm.
then Sunday, we will be doing War Thunder again at 8 p.m. CST. So we've got a jam-packed weekend. I hope to see you guys there. Who knows, we might even play some games with Yariko, hopefully. And I will see you guys then. Until then, I'm going to raid you guys on out to Freem. She is a very funny, very nice VTuber. You guys should check her out. I like her design a lot. She's really cool. So if you guys have fun with her, if you guys want to catch me until then, you can catch me on Discord or Twitter. You can type / and then either one. You can get the link for those. And I will see you guys then. All right. So Friday, 8 p.m. CST, we're going to continue this partner push. Love you guys bunches. Bye, friends. Have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. And before we pop out YouTube, make sure you check out the new short that dropped today at 3 p.m. It's pretty big banger. Another one out on Saturday.